crystal clear. Family meeting 7:00 p.m. non-negotiable. I stood at my parents' front door, hand hovering over the brass knocker, knowing whatever waited inside wouldn't be good. The perfectly manicured lawn and gleaming BMW in the driveway screamed success, the kind my family worshipped, and I'd apparently failed to achieve. I'm Sophia, the black sheep of the Richardson family. While my siblings collected degrees and accolades like trading cards, I chose a different path, one that involved creating things with my hands and building something uniquely mine. The door swung open before I could knock. "You're late," my father said, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Everyone's waiting." I checked my watch. 6:58 p.m. In my family, anything less than 10 minutes early was considered late. The living room fell silent as I entered. My sister Claire sat primly on the edge of the leather sofa, her lawyer's briefcase by her feet. Emma, fresh from her hospital shift, still wore her scrubs like a badge of honor. Oliver, my younger brother, didn't even look up from his phone. My father stood by the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back like a general preparing for battle. "Sit down, Sophia," he commanded, gesturing to the lone armchair facing everyone else. The setup reminded me of those intervention shows on TV. "What's this about?" I asked, remaining standing. Claire reached into her briefcase and pulled out a document. "We've been discussing the family's future," she said in her courtroom voice. "And we've come to a decision, a necessary one. For the good of the family," my mother added, perching beside Emma. The document made its way into my hands. The legal jargon was dense, but certain phrases jumped out. Formal dissolution of familial ties, relinquishment of inheritance rights, termination of family association. "You're disowning me?" The words came out as a whisper. "It's not personal." Oliver finally looked up. "It's business. Business." I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet room. "I'm your daughter, your sister. How is this not personal? Your choices reflect poorly on the family name," my father said. "Your little craft hobby, my business," I corrected. "Making trinkets in your apartment isn't a business," Emma scoffed. "It's embarrassing. Do you know how it feels when my colleagues ask what my sister does?" "We've given you every opportunity," my mother continued. "The best schools, connections, resources, and you've thrown it all away to play with glue and glitter." I looked down at the document again, my hands steady despite the earthquake in my chest. Years of subtle jabs, disappointed sighs, and backhanded compliments had prepared me for this moment. They'd never understood me, never tried to. "Where do I sign?" My mother blinked, clearly expecting tears or pleading. "Sophia, if you just reconsider your choices, where do I sign?" Claire pointed to the bottom of the page. "Initial here and sign here. There's a notary waiting in the study." 10 minutes later, it was done. I was no longer officially part of the Richardson family. The weight of their expectations, their judgment, their disapproval, all of it lifted from my shoulders. "I hope you understand," my father said as I headed for the door. "This is for the best." I turned back one last time, taking in their faces the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. "You know what's funny? You're so worried about the family name, about success and reputation, but you have no idea what I've actually built. You never bothered to ask." My mother started, "Sophia, no," I cut her off. "You've made your choice. Now you get to live with it." The door closed behind me with a soft click far too gentle for the magnitude of what had just happened. My phone buzzed. A notification from my business account. Another major order had come in, pushing my monthly revenue well into 6 figures again. I smiled as I walked to my car, thinking about the stack of orders waiting to be filled, the upcoming collaboration with a major retailer, and the feature article being written about my innovative approach to sustainable home decor. They wanted to cut me off? Fine. They'd learn soon enough what they'd thrown away. Success, after all, is the sweetest revenge. As I drove away from the house I'd grown up in, I didn't feel sadness or anger. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Freedom. Freedom to be exactly who I was without apology or explanation. Family, I realized, isn't about sharing a name or DNA. It's about who believes in you when no one else will. And I had people in my life who did exactly that. They just weren't the ones I was leaving behind. "You did what?" Jess nearly spilled her coffee across my workshop table. 3 days had passed since the disownment, and I'd finally gathered the courage to tell my best friend. Signed the papers without arguing, I said, carefully applying gold leaf to my latest creation. You should have seen their faces. They expected tears, begging, maybe a dramatic breakdown. But your inheritance, Soph. The family connections, all of it, just gone. I set down my tools and looked at her directly. What inheritance? A share in a car dealership I never wanted? The privilege of being told I'm a disappointment at every family dinner? Zach burst through the door, his laptop clutched to his chest like a lifeline. My marketing guru and business partner always had perfect timing. Soph, you need to see this. He spun his laptop around. Our latest collection just got picked up by Style and Home magazine. They're calling youth artisan revolutionizing sustainable home decor. Jess peered at the screen. Holy Soph, these numbers. Is that really how much you're making? That's just last month, Zach grinned. Wait until they see what we've got planned next. The eco-friendly packaging initiative alone is going to. My phone buzzed another order notification, then another, and another. What's happening? I asked Zach. He refreshed his browser. The article just went live. We're trending on social media. The sustainable living community is going crazy over your recycled material techniques. I walked to the wall of shelves displaying my latest pieces, handcrafted home decor, made entirely from reclaimed materials. Each piece told a story, discarded wood transformed into elegant wall art, salvaged metal reformed into striking sculptures, forgotten glass reborn as stunning light fixtures. We need to scale up, Zach said, already typing furiously. I'm getting inquiries from 3 major retailers. They want exclusive collections. Jess squeezed my shoulder. And your family has no idea? They never bothered to look, I said, picking up a piece I'd finished that morning, a delicate wind chime made from sea glass and driftwood. Too busy being embarrassed by their crafty daughter to notice she built a 6-figure business from scratch. 7 figures, actually, Zach corrected, still typing after these deals go through. My phone rang, unknown number. Hello? Is this Sophia Richardson? A woman's crisp voice asked. This is Catherine Chen from Business Forward magazine. We're doing a feature on emerging entrepreneurs in the sustainable luxury market. Your name keeps coming up. I caught Zach's eye. He gave me a thumbs up. I'd love to hear more, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. We're particularly interested in your journey, young female entrepreneur, innovative approach to sustainability, rapid growth. Would you be open to an interview? Cover story potential? I thought about my family's faces when they saw me on the cover of a national business magazine. Absolutely. When were you thinking? After setting up the interview, I turned to find both Jess and Zach staring at me. What? Business Forward? Zach whispered. Do you know how huge this is? Their features can make or break companies. Jess hugged me tight. This is it, Soph. This is your moment to show them all. I pulled away and picked up my tools again. No. This is my moment to show myself. I nodded at the workbench. I've got orders to fill. The next few weeks passed in a blur. I hired 3 assistants to help with production. Zach expanded our online presence and negotiated deals with retailers, and Jess helped me prepare for the Business Forward interview. Tell me again about your inspiration, she said one evening, playing reporter. I held up my latest piece, a chandelier made from broken mirrors and copper wire. I see beauty in broken things, in the pieces others throw away. Everything has potential if you look at it the right way. That's it, she said softly. That's what makes your work special. You're not just making pretty things. You're telling stories of transformation. My phone buzzed with a text from Zach. Major department store wants to meet tomorrow. Be ready. I looked around my workshop, once a dusty garage, now a thriving studio. Orders lined the walls, half-finished pieces waited on workbenches, and the air smelled of wood polish and possibility. You know what the best part is? I said to Jess, who was admiring the chandelier. I'm doing exactly what I've always wanted to do. What they called a hobby is now an empire in the making. Speaking of them, Jess hesitated. Have you heard anything? Not a word. I picked up my tools again. But they will soon enough. Everyone will. The chandelier caught the setting sun, sending fractured light dancing across the walls. Like my life, I thought broken pieces creating something unexpectedly beautiful. Time to get back to work? I said, reaching for another piece of salvaged copper. These orders won't fill themselves. There she is! Catherine from Business Forward rushed toward me, her heels clicking against the studio floor. Our cover girl! She thrust the magazine into my hands. My face stared back at me, surrounded by my most intricate pieces. The headline read, "The Queen of Sustainable Luxury, How Sophia Richardson Turned Trash into Treasure." The response has been incredible, Catherine gushed. Social media is exploding. 3 major networks want interviews. Zach burst in, waving his phone. Soph, the website crashed from traffic. We've got wait lists forming for every piece, and that department store deal, they doubled their initial offer. I traced my finger over the magazine cover, still struggling to believe it was real. The article detailed everything my creative process, business model, revenue growth, everything except my family's rejection. The Today Show called, Catherine continued. They want you for Monday morning prime slot. My phone lit up with a text from Claire, my first contact with family in 2 months. We need to talk. Urgent family matters. I showed the message to Jess, who'd been quietly organizing orders in the corner. Funny how you're suddenly family again, she muttered. Another text arrived, this time from Emma, saw the magazine. Why didn't you tell us? Call me ASAP. Ignore them, Zach said, glancing at my phone. We've got bigger things to focus on. The Singapore collector wants to commission 3 custom pieces, 6 figures each. Catherine cleared her throat. Speaking of figures, Forbes is interested in featuring you in their 30 under 30 list. The notifications kept coming. Oliver, Dad's upset. You should call her. Then my father, we should discuss your recent publicity. Your story's inspiring people, Catherine said, oblivious to my family drama. Young entrepreneur refuses to follow conventional path, proves everyone wrong it's resonating. Especially the sustainability angle. Zach added, the video of you collecting materials from demolition sites went viral. People love seeing the transformation process. My phone buzzed again, my mother this time. Family dinner Sunday, 7 p.m. We have much to discuss. Jess read the message over my shoulder. You're not going, right? I set the phone down and picked up a piece of sea glass, turning it over in my hands. Remember what you said about my work, Jess? About seeing beauty in broken things? Soph, no. They don't deserve I'm going, I cut her off. But not for the reasons they think. The rest of the week was a whirlwind. The Today Show interview went viral. Orders flooded in faster than we could handle them. And I hired 5 more assistants and leased additional workspace. Look at these numbers, Zach said during our Friday meeting. We've exceeded our annual projection in just 2 months. The sustainable luxury market can't get enough of your work. The waiting list for custom pieces is 6 months long. Even with the premium pricing, one of my assistants added. I nodded, only half listening. Sunday's dinner loomed in my mind. Then my phone lit up with an email that changed everything. Holy, I whispered. Zach looked up. What? The Museum of Modern Art. They want to feature my work in their upcoming exhibition on sustainable art. The studio erupted in cheers. Jess hugged me tight. See? This is what happens when you believe in yourself. When do they want to meet? Zach asked, already pulling up his calendar. Next week? In New York, I laughed. They're sending a private jet. Sunday arrived too quickly. As I pulled up to my parents' house, I noticed all their cars were already there, the whole family, right on time as usual. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Catherine. Breaking news! Your Business Forward feature just won U.S. Magazine Story of the Year. Congratulations. I smiled, tucking the phone away. Perfect timing. The door opened before I could knock. My mother stood there, looking exactly as she had the night they disowned me, except now her eyes held something new. Desperation. Sophia, darling. She stepped forward for a hug I didn't return. We've missed you. Behind her, I could see the rest of the family in the living room. Claire with her briefcase again. Emma pretending to read something on her phone. Oliver actually looking at me this time. My father still by his beloved fireplace. Have you? I asked, stepping past her into the house. Or did you miss what I represent now? The room fell silent. On the coffee table, I spotted copies of Business Forward. My face stared up at all of us, a testament to everything they'd dismissed. We should talk, my father said, his voice lacking its usual authority. About the future. About family. I sat in the same chair they'd put me in months ago when they decided I wasn't good enough to be part of their family. Yes, I agreed, smoothing my designer dress paid for with my little craft hobby money. Let's talk about the future. The silence in the living room was thick enough to cut. My mother bustled around pouring tea nobody asked for, while my father cleared his throat repeatedly. Your work is impressive, Claire finally said, tapping the magazine cover. The profit margins mentioned in the article are quite remarkable. Remarkable? I raised an eyebrow. I thought it was just a hobby, playing with glue and glitter. Wasn't that what you called it, Emma? Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat. We may have been hasty in our judgments. Hasty? I took a sip of tea. You disowned me. Had it notarized. About that, my father stepped forward. We've been discussing as a family, and we believe it's time to rectify that unfortunate situation. Unfortunate situation? I repeated. Is that what we're calling it now? Claire reached for her briefcase, always the lawyer. I've drawn up papers to nullify the previous agreement. We can have it done today. The timing seems convenient, I said, watching their faces. Right after the magazine cover, the TV appearances, the museum exhibition announcement. Museum exhibition? Oliver perked up. Which museum? MoMA, I said casually, enjoying their shocked expressions. They're flying me to New York next week. Private jet. My mother dropped a teacup. It shattered on the hardwood floor, but nobody moved to clean it up. Sophia, my father's voice took on the tone he used for important business deals. There's something else we need to discuss. The dealership is struggling, I finished for him. I know, I did my research. The shift toward electric vehicles hit you hard. Banks aren't as friendly as they used to be. The color drained from his face. How did you? I have good financial advisors now. They keep me informed about potential opportunities. Then you understand. Claire jumped in. The family business needs to evolve. Your sustainable approach, your media presence, it could be exactly what we need. I laughed, the sound echoing in the tense room. So that's what this is about. You don't want me back. You want my success to save you. That's not fair, Emma protested. We're family, are we? I stood up, walking to the fireplace where family photos still hung, none of them including me. Because 3 months ago, in this very room, you made it very clear that I wasn't family anymore. People make mistakes, my mother said softly. We're trying to make it right. No, I turned to face them. You're trying to save yourselves. The dealership's facing bankruptcy, isn't it, Dad? And Claire, that partner position you were promised, it fell through when your biggest client left. Emma, Street Mary's Hospital is cutting staff. And Oliver, your research funding got pulled. They stared at me, shocked at how much I knew. Like I said, good advisors. We could help each other, my father insisted. Pool our resources. The Richardson name still means something in this city. My name means something, I corrected him. My work means something, and I did that without your help. Actually, I did it despite your active discouragement. My phone buzzed a text from Zach. Singapore Collector doubled their offer again. Says price is no object. I have a meeting, I said, gathering my things. With people who believed in me before the magazine covers and TV spots. Sophia, please. My mother grabbed my arm. We're sorry, we were wrong. What more can we say? I gently removed her hand. You know what's interesting about my work? I take broken things that people throw away and turn them into something valuable. But some things, once broken, can't be fixed. Some relationships, once shattered, stay that way. You're really going to hold a grudge? Oliver asked. After we've apologized? Apologized? I walked to the door. All I've heard are business propositions and convenient excuses. Not one of you has actually said you're proud of what I've built, or that you were wrong about my choices. You just want what I have now. That's not true, Claire started. Save it. I cut her off. Keep your legal papers and your business proposals. I'm doing fine on my own. At the door, I turned back one last time. You know what the worst part is? If you'd supported me from the beginning, I would have helped you without hesitation. Family meant everything to me. But you taught me something valuable when you disowned me. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. I walked out, leaving them with their broken teacup and shattered pride. My phone buzzed again just this time. How'd it go? Exactly as expected, I texted back. They want what I have, not who I am. Their loss? She replied. Studio's packed with orders. Want to come help? Pizza on me. I smiled, starting my car. On my way. Family dinner's overrated anyway. The sun was setting as I drove away, casting long shadows behind me. Like the pieces I worked with, I'd been discarded but found my own way to shine. Some might call it karma. I called it justice. The text came 3 days later, dinner tonight. Please. Dad, I showed it to Zach during our morning meeting. Think he'll actually say pleases in person? Don't go, he said, not looking up from his laptop. We've got the MoMA meeting tomorrow, and the Singapore contract terms need reviewing. I'm going. I picked up a piece of twisted metal, considering its potential. But this time, I choose the place. I texted back, Lazure, 8:00 p.m. I'll make reservations. The response was immediate. That's a bit expensive. I'm buying, I replied. Bring mom. Lazure was the kind of restaurant my parents used to brag about going to before the dealership started struggling. I arrived early, wearing a designer dress that cost more than my old monthly rent. They walked in right on time, looking uncomfortable. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. Miss Richardson, your usual table is ready. The chef sends his regards and asks if you'd like the special tasting menu he's prepared. My parents' eyes widened. I smiled. That would be lovely, Thomas. Thank you. Once seated, my father cleared his throat. Your usual table, I invest in local businesses, I said, sipping my water. This place included. The chef does amazing things with sustainable ingredients. My mother fidgeted with her napkin. Sophia, about Sunday, let's order first. I cut her off as the sommelier approached. The 82 Bordeaux, please. The whole bottle. My father's face paled. I knew he recognized the four-figure wine. Now, I said after our glasses were filled. What's so urgent? They exchanged glances before my father spoke. The bank called in our loans. All of them. We have 30 days to either refinance or sell the dealership. And my mother jumped in. We've explored every option. Nobody's lending in this market. Not to car dealerships, I added. Especially not to dealerships without a clear transition plan to electric vehicles. The first course arrived tiny works of art on pristine plates. My parents barely touched theirs. We need help, my father said finally, the words seeming to physically pain him. Your help. Financial help, I clarified. Not family reconciliation. Both, my mother insisted. We were wrong, Sophia. So wrong. Seeing what you've built, what you've become, what I've become. I set down my fork. I'm exactly who I was 3 months ago. The only difference is now I have money and influence. The second course arrived. My father still hadn't touched his first. We're not just asking for money, he said. We want to merge the businesses. Your vision, your sustainable approach, it could revolutionize the dealership. Electric vehicles, eco-friendly practices, and save the family name, I finished. That's what this is really about, isn't it? My mother reached for my hand. I let her take it, watching her face. We're losing everything, Sophia. The house, the business, our reputation. Like I lost my family. She withdrew her hand. The main course arrived perfectly cooked Wagyu beef. The chef stopped by personally to check on us. Everything is perfect, Antonio, I assured him. The new sustainable menu is brilliant. After he left, my father leaned forward. How much? Excuse me? To save the dealership. How much do you want? I laughed, the sound drawing glances from nearby tables. You still don't get it. This isn't about money. It never was. Then what do you want? He demanded, frustration breaking through his carefully maintained facade. I wanted you to love me for who I am, I said quietly. I wanted you to be proud of me before the magazine covers and TV spots. I wanted a family who saw my value without a dollar sign attached to it. The dessert arrived, a spectacular creation of sponge, sugar, and gold leaf. My mother started crying silently. We can change, she whispered. We can be better. I signaled for the check. Maybe you can. But here's the thing, I don't need you to anymore. I don't need your approval, your connections, or your name. I built something beautiful out of what you threw away. The bill came. I handed over my black card without looking at the total. So that's it? My father asked. You'll let the family business die? Let us lose everything? I stood up, smoothing my dress. You taught me an important lesson when you disowned me. Business is business. It's not personal. Sophia, please, my mother started. I have an early flight to New York tomorrow. I cut her off. The museum's sending a car at 6. Enjoy the rest of your dinner. It's already paid for. I walked out of Lazar, leaving them with their cold food and colder reality. My phone buzzed Jess asking how it went. They finally said please as I texted back. Too bad it was for the wrong reasons. The night air was cool on my face as I headed home. Tomorrow I'd be discussing my art in one of the world's premier museums. Tonight, I'd left my parents with a bill they never saw coming, the true cost of throwing away family for the sake of appearances. They offered what? Jess nearly fell off her chair in my New York hotel suite. 20 million, I repeated, still staring at the contract MoMA's lawyers had presented for a permanent installation and consulting role on their sustainable art initiative. Holy, Zach whispered, pacing the room. That's not including the Singapore deals or the retail contracts. My phone buzzed Claire again. Dad's meeting with bankruptcy lawyers tomorrow. Please call. I ignored it, focusing on the Manhattan skyline outside my window. The museum's private car would arrive in an hour for the final contract signing. Your family's blowing up my phone too, Jess said. Your sister Emma came by the studio yesterday. What did she want? To explain airside. Said they're about to lose the house. Oliver's moving back in with them since his research position got cut. Another text from my mother, please come home. We need to talk as a family. Zach stopped pacing. You know what's ironic? If they hadn't disowned you, your business wouldn't have grown this fast. You channeled all that hurt into your work. Speaking of work, Jess picked up a piece from my latest collection, a phoenix rising from twisted metal and broken glass. This is different. Darker. It's for the museum installation, I said. I'm calling it Family Ties. My phone rang Dad. I let it go to voicemail. You could save them, Zach said quietly. 20 million would clear their debts with plenty left over. I could, I agreed. But should I? Jess stood up, walking to the phoenix sculpture. Remember what you told me when you started this? About seeing beauty in broken things? This is different, is it? She turned the piece, watching light play through the glass. Maybe this is your chance to transform something broken into something beautiful. My phone buzzed again, a text from Oliver. They're auctioning off Mom's jewelry tomorrow. Even her wedding ring. They made their choice, I said, but my voice wavered. Zach sat down, pulling up something on his laptop. Look at this. I've been running numbers. You could buy the dealership for pennies on the dollar right now. Transform it into an electric vehicle showroom. Your sustainable brand plus their existing infrastructure, it could work. But only if you wanted to, Jess added. A knock at the door interrupted us, a courier with a thick envelope. Inside was a letter from my father, handwritten Sophia. I've written this letter 100 times in my head. Nothing sounds right. Nothing can excuse what we did. You were always the strongest of us, the most genuine. We were too blind to see it. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for a chance to be the father I should have been, to be the family you deserved. We're losing everything, but that's not why I'm writing. We lost what mattered most the day we signed those papers. We lost you. I'm proud of you not because of your success, but because of who you are, who you've always been. Love, Dad. The paper shook in my hands. Soph? Jess asked softly. He said he's proud of me, I whispered. For the first time in my life. Zach closed his laptop. The museum contract doesn't need to be signed today. We could postpone. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from Emma. Mom's in the hospital. Stress and exhaustion. She keeps asking for you. I looked at the phoenix sculpture. Its broken pieces forming something new. Something stronger. Call the car, I said. We're making a stop before the museum. Where? Jess asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. The bank. I need to make some arrangements. And then? Zach was already dialing. I picked up the phoenix, carefully wrapping it. Then we're going to save a family. But on my terms, what are you thinking? Jess asked. A new company. Sustainable luxury vehicles. Electric showrooms with my art installations. A complete reinvention of what the family business means. With you in charge, Zach added. With me in charge, I agreed. They want to be family again? Fine. But we do it my way. No more hiding who I am. No more shame about being different. The prodigal daughter returns, Jess smiled. But this time, she's the one with the power. I looked at my father's letter again. Sometimes the things we break can be rebuilt stronger. But first, everyone has to admit they're broken. The car arrived as I finished packing the Phoenix. It seemed fitting this piece about resurrection would now witness one. Ready? Jess asked. I nodded, tucking the letter into my pocket. Time to show them what family really means. And what it costs. We headed down to the waiting car, the Phoenix carefully cradled in my arms. Its glass wings caught the sunlight, sending fragments of light dancing across the walls, broken pieces coming together to create something unexpected. Something beautiful. Just like us. The hospital waiting room fell silent as I walked in, the Phoenix sculpture still in my arms. My siblings looked up from their phones, their faces a mix of surprise and relief. You came, Claire said, standing. Where is she? I asked. Room 304, Emma answered. Dad's with her. Oliver stepped forward. The doctors say it's mostly exhaustion and… Save it! I cut him off. We're having a family meeting now. Conference room down the hall. All of you. They exchanged glances but followed me. The Phoenix found its temporary home on the conference room table, its shadows dancing across their tired faces. Before we see Mom, I said, pulling out a stack of papers. We're going to get some things straight. Is that, Claire started, recognizing legal documents. A new company structure, yes. I laid out the papers. The dealership gets restructured into Phoenix Electric, sustainable luxury vehicles. I'll clear the debts, invest in electric infrastructure, and integrate my art installations into the showrooms. Their eyes widened at the numbers, but I continued. There are conditions, of course. Of course there are, Oliver muttered. First, I'm CEO, non-negotiable. Dad becomes chairman emeritus, advisory role only. Each of you gets shares based on your contribution to the new vision, not family ties. Wendy reached for the papers. I pulled them back. I'm not finished. Second condition, the old family dynamics die today. No more judgment about life choices. No more forcing people into boxes they don't fit in. Is this revenge? Emma asked quietly. No. I picked up the Phoenix. It's resurrection. But first, you need to understand what you did. I faced each of them. Claire, you drafted the papers to disown me. Emma, you mocked my little hobby every chance you got. Oliver, you couldn't even look at me that night. Each of you chose status over sister. The room fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. We were wrong, Claire whispered. Say it louder, we were wrong. She stood up, tears in her eyes. I was wrong. I let my own insecurities about success blind me. You built something amazing while I chased other people's definitions of achievement. Emma joined her. I was jealous. You had the courage to follow your passion while I followed expectations. I'm so sorry, Soph. Oliver remained seated. I was a coward, he said simply. I knew they were wrong about you, but I stayed quiet. It was easier. I set the Phoenix down. That's a start. Now about Mom and Dad, the door opened. My father stood there looking older than I'd ever seen him. I heard everything, he said. The nurses said you were here, and he trailed off, staring at the Phoenix. Dad, no. He held up his hand. My turn. He walked to the sculpture, touching it gently. This is beautiful, like everything you create. I was too proud, too stuck in my ways to see it. To story 2, at precisely 2:47 a.m. My phone's screen was illuminated by a text message from my mother. Come home right now. You're needed by your sister. Those words burnt into my retinas as I peered at them. A familiar mix of anger and resignation made my hands shake. My name is Adeline, and I've spent 25 years being the responsible one, the trustworthy one, the one who always comes rushing when summoned. It was meant to be different tonight. I was celebrating getting my dream job tonight. Senior marketing director for one of New York's premier agencies. Don't let her spoil this for you, Natasha murmured, passing another glass of champagne across the table. We were the last ones remaining at the pub, our earlier celebration with coworkers having trickled down to just us two. You've worked too hard for this. I allowed the bubbles to pop on my mouth as I took a deep gulp. You're not understanding. Willow is most likely experiencing another crisis. She was unable to choose which opulent apartment to rent with her father's money the last time. Before that, it was because her lover abandoned her for being too high maintenance. Additionally, your mother anticipates that you will drop everything to mend it. Natasha's disapproving tone was evident in her voice. That's what I do. I have always done it. With my thumb over the call button, I retrieved my mother's contact details. Don't. Natasha took hold of my phone. At least wait till dawn. However, I was aware. Mom's voice would get more and more distraught as the calls continued, until I caved. I dialed her number. Mom's voice finally cracked over the speaker. Where have you been? Your sister may lose her entry-level job as a result of downsizing at her employer. She is inconsolable. I touched my temple with my fingertips. The middle of the night, Mom. Now, what do you want me to do about it? You must return home and assist her in obtaining employment. She wants assistance finding an apartment while you're at it. You are aware of how overwhelmed she gets with paperwork, and the lease expires next month. I can't, Mom. I just agreed to a job offer in New York. In 3 weeks, I will begin. When she spoke again, the quiet on the other end was deafening. She spoke in a chilly tone. You're putting your career above your family. Mom, it's more than just a job. It's my future and my career. I've been working for this chance for years. You're needed here for your sister. Adeline, family comes first. Always. She stopped, and I could virtually feel her pursing her lips in displeasure. In addition, Chicago has a large number of marketing positions. Something local is available. I caught Natasha's look across the table. She was giving a forceful shake of her head. I'm not going back, Mama. Not this time. Then you give me no other option. Mom's voice grew stern. You may either consider yourself no longer a member of this family, or you can come home and assist your sister. The words struck me like a punch to the body. Are you really issuing me a deadline? I'm being practical. Through college, you have been supported by your father and myself, assisted you in finding your first flat, and you pay us back like this? By leaving your sister behind when she most needs you. Reminding her that I would work 3 jobs while attending college made me want to shout. While my sister continued to live off their credit cards at the age of 22, Willow received a free ride, and I paid back every dime they had given me. I hung up after muttering, I'll think about it. Natasha squeezed my hand as she stretched across the table. You are aware of your obligations, correct? Slowly, I nodded. I have a plan in mind. I'm not going to argue about it, but I'm also not going back. What are you saying? Forgetting the champagne, I took out my laptop. Tomorrow, I'm purchasing a one-way ticket to New York. Don't argue. No big confrontation. I'll leave a letter outlining everything for them. Goddamn, Natasha muttered. You're actually succeeding. Observe me. I booked the flight with my fingers flying across the keyboard. Tonight marks the conclusion of 25 years of being the family doormat. My phone buzzed once more as I verified the transaction. Willow texted, Please come home, Addie. Without you, I'm not sure what I'll do. In my life, for the first time, I didn't react. Rather, I launched a fresh document and started typing. The words came naturally now. Dear Willow, Dad, and Mom. Feelings that have been repressed for years are now being expressed on paper. They would wake up the next day to see me gone. They would ultimately have to deal with the repercussions of their conduct tomorrow. My new life would start tomorrow, however, I needed to write a letter tonight. When I completed the letter, the sun had not yet risen. My hands were shaking when I sealed the package. 3 paragraphs of harsh honesty distilled all the hardships of my existence. Go through it. I informed Natasha, who had spent the night with me. If it's too severe, let me know. She opened the book and started reading out loud. By the time you read this, Willow, my parents and I will be traveling to New York. I understand that you didn't want this to happen, but I can't keep burning myself alive to keep other people warm. Mom, you've always said family comes first, but you never meant the complete family, just Willow. While I was a college student and worked 3 jobs, you labeled me selfish for not having time to help her with her homework. You rejected my first promotion because Willow was experiencing boy problems that seemed to require my urgent care. Mom's demands have been just as harmful as your quiet dad. You never once defended me, although you saw me struggle and give up everything for Willow. You become complicit by passively accepting this situation. I also adore you, Willow. You're 22 years old, though. You need to mature. Everyone else doesn't have to give their life to solve your troubles. It's no longer cute that you can't manage the responsibilities of an adult. It's draining. I have no intention of hurting any of you. I'm selecting myself for the first time in my life, which is why I'm doing this. I've agreed to take the job in New York. I've signed an apartment contract. I'm beginning over. Do not attempt to shame me into returning. Don't use threats of cutting me off to attempt to control me. Since I was 18, I have been self-sufficient. Nothing will change except that I'll finally be free to live my own life. You and I must be on equal footing if you wish to continue our connection. I will no longer be expected to sacrifice all for Willow. No more journeys of guilt. No more ultimatums. I'm hoping you'll comprehend one day. Adeline, love. Natasha's eyes widened as she looked up from the letter. Goddamn, Adeline, this is fantastic. I zipped up my suitcase, already packed with the necessities. Later, the rest would be dispatched. It's not too much, do you? It's precisely enough. She assisted me in getting my stuff to her vehicle. Do you really think I shouldn't take you to the airport? No. I'm going to take an Uber. Staying up with me all night has been more than enough for you. In the pre-dawn darkness, the trip to my parents' house felt unreal. Across the street, Natasha pulled up, not using the headlights. I took the letter and snuck out. Willow spent hours on her phone while the garden mom diligently maintained the porch swing, which made our family home appear almost mockingly calm. Dad's spotlessly clean automobile in the parking lot. It was all just as it had always been. In order for Mom to find the letter during her morning coffee routine, I put it on the kitchen counter. I kept my hand on the envelope for a second, then I made myself look away. My phone began to vibrate. Willow texted again. Why don't you respond, Addie? Mom is quite unhappy. I turned my phone off. When I got back to Natasha's car, the Uber was already there. You're doing the right thing, she whispered as she gave me a hard hug. When you get to the airport, give me a call. Everything happened so quickly. At the gate, security coffee is waiting. Reality didn't really hit me until I was securely fastened to my seat. Do you want to have a drink? I was brought back to reality by the voice of the flight attendant. Please, water. As the plane lifted off, my speech sounded weird to me. I saw my mother discovering the latter. After feeling upset and furious, she would contact Willow right away to console herself. Even if he might have felt a little guilty, Dad would read it quietly and wait to see how Mom responded. Willow as well. When she realized her safety net was gone, I imagined her face crumpling. While a part of me longed for her, a larger part of me was incredibly relieved. 25 years of serving as everyone's emotional support system vanished along with the city behind the clouds. I kept my phone off in my bag, gathering angry texts and missed calls. I wasn't prepared for it. Visiting New York for the first time, the old woman beside me politely inquired. No, I said, forcing a tiny smile. However, this is my first time staying there. I felt something I hadn't felt in years as the sun finally rose above the horizon, illuminating the clouds with vivid pinks and oranges. I hope whatever comes next. No matter what storm I just let loose, I was finally in control of my own ship, at least. They wrote the letter. The die was rolled. There was no going back now. I was struck by New York like a wall of color and sound. I've been in my new life 3 weeks, and I was still in shock that I had really done it. Although my Brooklyn studio apartment was much smaller than my room back home, I owned every square inch of it, made with my own funds, furnished to my own preferences, and fortunately devoid of family strife. Adeline, Miguel. I had my new boss peek into my office. Have a moment? I minimized my email fast. Mom left 37 unread messages. Dad left 12 and Willow left 63. Of course, I was still in awe of the Manhattan vista from Miguel's office. He motioned me to take a seat. The presentation for the Johnson campaign was excellent. The client admired your novel viewpoint. Thank you. But he held up a hand. You seem distracted. Everything okay? I paused. Miguel had been nothing but supportive since I'd started, but I kept my personal life private at work, just adapting to the city and dodging calls from Chicago. He grinned knowingly. All week long, your phone has been ringing during meetings. Is it that evident just to someone who did the same thing 20 years ago? He leaned back in his chair, left Puerto Rico against my family's wishes. It was 2 years before they spoke to me again. How did you respond to it? By recalling my reasons for leaving. On that subject, he moved a file across his desk. Next week, we will make a pitch to Nike. Do you want to take the lead? My heart leaped. Are you serious? That's big. You deserve it. Just. He pointed to my phone, which was beeping once more. Deal with whatever that is. Clear your brain. Back in my office, I finally turned on my phone. Sound. Willow's voicemail came on instantly. Please, Addie. She spoke with tears in her eyes. I was laid off. I missed too many deadlines, they complained. Mom's making me move back home, but I can't. This is not how I can go backward. I need your assistance. Please call me back. My fingers was trembling as I hit the erase button. A second voicemail began. Adeline Gibson. Mom's tone was abrasive. Your sister's coming apart and you're playing professional lady in New York. How dare you forsake your family like this? That letter was self-centered and cruel. Call me back ASAP. Remove. My phone rang. Natasha's face flashed up on screen. Finally, a call. I desired to take. Your sister arrived at my residence just now. She didn't introduce herself. What? Why? I'm trying to find you. Of course. She's a complete disaster. Adeline, there is mascara everywhere. Going out in PJ pants. This time, she was actually fired. I slumped in my seat. No longer my concern. I knew, but Natasha hesitated. She reported experiencing panic attacks. Perhaps we were too severe. We? That letter was written by me alone. You understand what I mean? You've seen me sacrifice my life for them for years, so I gave you encouragement. I was on the verge of yelling. Did she explain her termination? The deadlines that were missed? The never-ending drama? No. However, allow me to explain what transpired. She was on Instagram more often than she was working. Every time she had a bad date, she called in sick. Just as she expected me to fix everything else in her life, she expected everyone else to cover for her. I jumped when I heard a knock on my door. Miguel was standing there looking worried. I spoke more softly. Natasha, I have to leave. Don't allow her to coerce you into giving her my address, though. How about your father? She asked hastily. He has also been inquiring about you. Dad defended me for 25 years. Nor am I responsible for his guilt. After hanging up, I faced Miguel. I apologize for it. He took a seat on the other side of me. You know, when I left home, I thought I was just running away. Years passed before I realized that I was genuinely racing in the direction of something greater. Has your family ever comprehended? Finally, but only after I gave up attempting to explain things to them. He tapped the Nike file. Sometimes the best retribution is success. Once more, my phone buzzed. A text from Willow found out you're working at Marshall and Brooks. I showed Miguel the message, and I suppose that family is nothing in comparison to a corner office. She's attempting to find me. Do you want my opinion? Pay attention to the Nike pitch. Pour everything into it. The best boundary is success. It lets them know you're doing well without them. I elongated my back. You're correct. Can you show me the brief once more? As I engaged myself in work, my phone kept vibrating with messages from home. However, something more powerful took precedence over the guilt for the first time. Determination. Give them a panic. Allow them to experience dealing with their own issues. I needed to make a great presentation. I hardly had time to enjoy the success of the Nike pitch when Natasha's frantic phone arrived. Your mom came to work today, she added, her voice tense with nervousness. Adeline, she's growing desperate. I was surrounded by the nighttime bustle of the city as I made my way home from the metro. What was it she desired? What are your thoughts? She's attempting to use guilt to get me to provide your address. It's hardly the worst part, though. Natasha hesitated. Willow is definitely spiraling. Last week, she totaled her vehicle. I stopped walking. What? Was she injured? No, just her pride in Dad's credit card. She was texting while driving. Here's the problem, though. Your parents declined to purchase a new one for her. Really? As I processed this, I leaned against a structure. Willow was truly turned down by her parents. They can't afford it, apparently. Your dad's company is struggling. My phone beeped as Willow moved back home. There's another call coming in. I have to leave, Mom. Natasha. Thank you for informing me. I took my mother's call. I am bracing myself. Hi there? At last, her voice had changed. More strained, less dominating. We must discuss what you have done to this family, Adeline. What have I done? I gave an astonished laugh. Mom, I made a professional decision. Ultimatums weren't given by me. Your sister is disintegrating. She had to return home. In addition to suffering anxiety episodes, she is unable to obtain employment. Did you wish for that? I gripped my phone more tightly. I wanted to be independent and not Willow's constant fallback option. I am your daughter, and she is your sister. Strangers who were passing by turned their attention as my words reverberated off the buildings. But you never gave a damn about my nervousness, did you? When I was working 3 jobs in college, when I had to cancel my own plans continuously to save Willow, there was a long pause. Mom's voice became softer as she spoke again. You must return home for us. Only for a short time. Assist her in standing up again. No. Please, Adeline. Your father's company is having trouble. We are no longer able to help her as we once did. You want me to take over now that you are unable to enable her? I resumed my stroll. Quicker now. Mom, that's not going to happen. You're being self-centered. Well, I'm succeeding. I recently secured the largest account of my professional life. I live my own life and have my own place. This is the first time I'm prioritizing myself. It's also effective. Another silence then? Your dad would like to talk to you. Dad's voice, tentative as usual, came through. Princess, you are missed, I stumbled. Since I was little, my father had not referred to me as a princess. I realize we made a mistake, Dad. I realize I ought to have said and done more. Then why didn't you? It was easier not to rock the boat. But witnessing what it's done to you, to all of us. He sighed heavily. Willow needs to become self-sufficient. She doesn't know how, but we can see that now. I'm not in charge of it. No, we own it. You were both let down by us in separate ways. His voice cracked. Just don't cut us off completely. Please. I reached my apartment complex, fumbling with my keys. Dad, I need time. Space to develop my own life without feeling bad about it. I get it. But Adeline, indeed, I'm proud of you for being strong enough to leave, for succeeding. Years ago, I ought to have mentioned that. Tears pricked at my eyes. Regards, Dad. After hanging up, I sat on my building stoop, letting the city noise wash over me. My phone rang with a text from Willow. Everyone is upset with me, and you are solely to blame. I despise you. Another a few minutes later. I apologize. I don't hate you. I really don't know how to do this without you. I started typing. Removed. It started again. At last. It will come to you. You underestimate your strength. Then I turned off my phone and headed upstairs to my flat. On my desk, the Nike contract stood waiting for my signature. As lead director, I had my first significant customer. Next to it was a framed snapshot. Natasha had taken the night before I went, my face sparkling with resolve and champagne. That girl in the photo had been terrified, but did it anyway. I should have been concentrating on her instead of the never-ending drama at home. My laptop pinged with an email from Miguel. Nike adores your concepts. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate. Yes, I answered with a smile. Let Willow sort out her own life for once. Allow Mom and Dad to bear the repercussions of their decisions. I needed to organize a party. At 11 p.m., someone knocked on the door of my flat on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anyone, and my heart nearly stopped when I looked through the peephole. Willow was standing there, holding a high-end suitcase that most likely cost more than my rent. Mascara ran down her face. You're in there, I know that. She called out, your lights on. I inhaled deeply before opening the door. You found my address, but how? Before I found a Brooklyn real estate agent who remembered you, I phoned all of them. She pushed inside the flat, past me. Nice location. Not that big, though. Willow, what are you doing here? With a thump, she dropped her suitcase. Parents are being uncooperative. My credit cards were frozen. I'm being forced to apply for jobs. Dad even recommended that I work as a barista. I work as a barista. I folded my arms. The horror. Avoid being sarcastic. This is serious. She fell down on my sofa. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just till I sort things out. Not at all. Hurry up. Addie, we're sisters. Indeed, we are. That's precisely why you can't remain here. I stay standing, maintaining distance. Willow, you always act like this. You cause mayhem, then expect everyone else to fix it. It's unfair. No. How about when I graduate from college? You had a crisis because your boyfriend didn't like your dress. And mom had me skip the ceremony to take you shopping. Back then, I was young. You were 19. I worked my ass off for that degree, and I didn't even get to walk across the stage because you needed attention. Willow's bottom lip quivered. Why are you so cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm telling the truth. I sat in the chair opposite her. Do you know what I was doing when Mom called that night, demanding I come home to help you? She gave a head shake. I was celebrating winning this position, the largest chance of my career, and she wanted me to give it up because you might have to face penalties for once in your life. She wasn't asked to do that by me. No, you never ask Willow directly. Until someone fixes everything for you, you just cry and freak out. Abruptly, she got up and paced my tiny living room. What should I do then? Live with mom and dad forever? Be a barista. You're supposed to grow up, get a job, any job. Develop financial management skills. Give up expecting others to fix your issues. Easy for you to say. You have consistently been the ideal person, the accountable one, since I had to speak for myself. Rose, do you think I wanted to work 3 jobs in college to miss out on parties and dating because I was too busy being your backup plan? Willow's face crumpled as she stopped pacing. I was unaware. You never had to consider anyone but yourself, so no, you didn't. Miguel texted me about tomorrow's meeting, and my phone buzzed. The real world, my new life, calling. You need to leave. I spoke aggressively. Go home. Willow, for once, confront your issues head on. She whispered. Mom was right. You've evolved. Are you chilly now? No, I'm simply done being everyone's safety net. I walked to the door and opened it. You can stay in a hotel tonight if you want, but you're not staying here. She reached for her bag, tears streaming freely now. I thought you loved me? I do love you. I'm no longer enabling you because of this. At the door, she turned back. What if I'm not able to? What if I don't succeed? You'll then take what you've learned and try again. Adults do just that. After she left, I sat on my couch shaking. Mom had already left 3 missed calls on my phone. Willow had obviously called her. I texted Natasha. Willow just showed up in my flat. She replied immediately. Goddamn, are you all right? Yes, send her away. Do you feel like a monster? You're not a monster. You're teaching her the lesson. Your parents never did. I surveyed my apartment. Small, but mine paid for with my own money. My workstation is decorated to my personal style. Next to the Nike deal was a pile of other projects. My new life built on my own terms. My phone rang again. Mom, this time I turned it off totally. Tomorrow I had a meeting to prepare for tomorrow. I would continue creating my profession, my freedom, my future, and Willow for the first time in her life. She would have to make her own future too. Maybe that was the greatest gift I could give her, even if she couldn't see it yet. 2 months after Willow's surprise visit, Natasha's weekly update call brought surprising news. Your sister got a job, she said, the astonishment clear in her voice. I almost spilled my coffee. What sort of work? A dentistry office receptionist. Get this too. She's been there for 3 weeks already. I took a seat at the counter in my kitchen. You're joking, not at all. Your sister is really there on time every day, despite your mom's constant complaints that it's beneath Willow. Whoa. I struggled to process this information. How are you aware of all of this? I ran into her at Starbucks. She was on her lunch break wearing scrubs and all. She appeared different, more grounded. Another call beeped on my phone. Miguel, I have to go. Natasha. Work call. Adeline. Miguel's voice was serious. Are you able to visit the office right now? I sat in his office 20 minutes later, looking at him in shock. Paris. The Nike ad was a huge success. They want their European launch to be handled by us, leading the team for 3 months in Paris. He bent over. This is a fantastic opportunity. When? Next week. I am aware that it is abrupt, but my dad texted me. Kindly make an emergency call. I choose to disregard it. I will. Are you certain? It's a significant shift, even for a short time. Dad texted me again. It's about my health. I need to talk. My hand froze over the phone. Miguel took note. Is everything all right? I'm not sure. Can I have 1 hour outside Miguel's office? I gave Dad a call. Princess. His voice was weak. I suffered a heart attack yesterday. The world tipped sideways. What? Why hadn't I received a call earlier? Your mom want to. However, I requested that she hold off until I could speak with you directly. He took a breath. It was a gentle one. I'm all right. There's more, though. What are you saying? The company. For months, I've been having difficulties. The tension? Well, the physicians advise I need to step back. Actually, Willow has been fantastic, Dad. He laughed feebly. She has been assisting with the documentation, mastering the fundamentals of business. While I heal, she wants to try running things. I took a seat firmly in a nearby chair. Willow is in charge of the company. She has evolved. Adeline. This wake-up call, losing you. It forced her to grow up. One more pause. Willow is really stepping up, but your mother is having a hard time accepting it. My throat constricted. Is it necessary for me to return home? No, Princess. That's why I waited to call. I didn't want you dropping everything and hurrying back. We're managing. He gave a little cough. Willow insisted on taking care of things on her own, said that it was time for her to accept accountability. Unexpectedly, I brushed away tears. What have you done to my family, and who are you? After he laughed, he became serious. Adeline, we let you down for so long, letting you handle everything, making you responsible for everyone else's happiness. Now I see that. Dad, no! Let me be done! Are you heading out? We all had to adjust as a result. Your mother is still adapting, but she's trying. And Willow, he sounded proud. She's becoming into the person she could have been if we hadn't lavished her with attention. Miguel tapped his watch and emerged at the doorway. Dad, I have to go. I'll give you a call tonight, but I'm now working on something. Okay? Naturally. Go succeed. Here, we're all right. With my head whirling, I returned to Miguel's office. Everything all right? He inquired. My father suffered a heart attack. Jesus. Take a look. Ignore Paris. Family comes first. No. I straightened up my sister's managing it. And I genuinely think she can, for the first time in my life. Are you certain? I imagined Willow, dressed in scrubs, going to work each day. Willow learning the family business. Is Willow finally maturing? Indeed. I'm positive. I accepted the contract for Paris. Where should I sign? I gave Natasha a call that evening to update her on Paris. She let out an excited squeal before becoming serious. I got a call from your mom today regarding your dad. I am aware that you had a heart attack. No. She wants me to inform you apologies. Use those words, actually. I sat quietly and let that to sink in. She mentioned that she had been working on her control issues with a therapist. Natasha hesitated. Adeline is changeable. Yes, I murmured quietly as I glanced at my Paris-bound bag. I'm beginning to think so. Willow texted me and my phone chimed. Heard about Paris. Well done. For the first time since I'd left, I felt something shift. Not really forgiveness, but the potential. Perhaps each of us had to forge our own paths in order to mature. Paris fulfilled all of my fantasies, and more. But Dad's second heart attack brought me home after just 6 weeks standing outside his hospital room. I scarcely recognized my sister in her professional dress, typing feverishly on her laptop. The insurance company's being tough, Willow said without looking up. But I've got it handled. When was the last time you slept? She finally met my eyes. Under her makeup, dark circles were visible. Perhaps on Tuesday. I'm trying to run the business, handle insurance and work with Dad's physicians. Mom isn't. She's not dealing well. Where is she? Cafeteria. She stress bakes now. The nurses are getting tired of her muffins. I sat near her. How awful is it? He requires bypass surgery, according to the physicians. Triple bypass. Her voice cracked slightly. Our insurance has a huge deductible, and the business is having trouble. I've been going through the books trying to figure something out. I can help with the medical fees I promised. No. Willow's response was immediate. You've got your life in Paris. I've got this Willow. I mean it, Hattie. I'm not that helpless girl anymore. She showed me her laptop screen. Look, I've already adjusted some of Dad's company loans, found ways to cut costs without laying anyone off. I just need to figure out the insurance situation. Mom appeared with a basket of muffins, stopping short when she saw me. Adeline, you're here. Of course I'm here. She sat down the muffins and hugged me awkwardly. I didn't think. With your important Paris job. It's Dad, I said plainly. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry for everything. I know it's too late, but… Mom, Willow interrupted. The doctor's here. The surgeon explained the procedure, risks, and recovery time. Mom started crying again. Willow took notes on her laptop. I watched them both, feeling like I'd stepped into an alternate universe. The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning, the doctor concluded. Any questions? The insurance, Willow began, is approved. A familiar voice said behind us. We turned to see Miguel standing there, looking out of place in his designer suit. What are you doing here? I asked. Handling the insurance situation. He handed Willow some papers. The company's international health coverage extends to immediate family of employees on overseas assignments. I had them backdated to when you accepted the Paris position. Willow scanned the documents. Her handshake. This covers everything. The surgery, the recovery, all of it. Miguel. I started, but he held up his hand. The Paris team can handle things for a few more weeks. Take care of your family. After he left, Mom turned to me. He seems nice. He's my boss. Mom. A boss who flew from Paris to help with your father's insurance. She raised an eyebrow. People don't do that for just employees. Can we focus? Willow was back to her laptop. We need to prepare for Dad's recovery. He'll need care at home. Physical therapy. I'll handle that, Mom said quietly. I've been talking to someone, a therapist, learning to be more present. Less controlling. Mom's actually cooking now. Willow added real food, not just stress baking. And you? I asked Willow. How are you really doing with all this? She closed her laptop, terrified, overwhelmed, but also capable. For the first time in my life, I know I can handle things, even if they're hard. Even if I'm scared. Your sister's become quite the businesswoman, Mom said proudly. She reminds me of you sometimes. No, Willow shook her head. I'm not trying to be Adeline anymore. I'm trying to be me. Just a better version. Dad was awake when we entered his room. My girls. He smiled weakly. All three of you together. The surgery's approved, Willow told him. Everything's arranged. Never doubted you for a minute, sweetheart. He turned to me. Paris treating you well? It can wait, I said. Family comes first. Mom flinched at her own words being turned around. But Dad just smiled. No, princess. Family comes first. Doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. It means supporting each other while everyone grows. He squeezed my hand. Go back to Paris after the surgery. We've got this covered. Looking at Willow's quiet confidence, Mom's softened edges and Dad's proud smile, I realized he was right. This wasn't the family I'd fled from months ago. We'd all changed, grown, learned to stand on our own and support each other in healthier ways. Okay, I agreed, but I'm staying until you're recovered from surgery. Deal, Willow said. Now let's talk about your marketing expertise. The business could use some fresh ideas. We spent the night planning, talking, and actually listening to each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And sometimes that's enough. Welcome to Gibson and Gibson Marketing. Willow greeted me at the door of Dad's renovated office building. What do you think? I stared at the modern glass entrance, the sleek new logo and the bustling employees visible through the windows. I barely recognize it. Wait until you see inside. She led me through, proudly pointing out changes. We've doubled our client base since implementing your marketing strategies. Dad mostly works from home now, but he comes in for the big meetings, and Mom started her own catering business. Turns out all that stress baking had a silver lining. Willow laughed. She's actually really good at it. In the main conference room, Dad sat at the head of the table, looking healthier than I'd seen him in years. There's my Paris director. Not anymore, I corrected, hugging him. New York's home base now. Paris is just a quarterly visit. Speaking of New York, Willow pulled out a folder. I have a proposal for you. Oh, we want to open a New York branch. Dad and I talked about it. and she took a deep breath. We'd like you to run it. I blinked. What? As an equal partner, Dad added your sister's ideas and your marketing expertise. You'd be unstoppable. I already have a job. Miguel thought you might say that. Willow smiled knowingly. Miguel, who do you think approached us about a potential merger? Dad's eyes twinkled. Marshall and Brooks's New York office merging with Gibson and Gibson. You'd had the combined operation. I sat down hard. You've been talking to Miguel for months. Willow sat beside me. Look, I know our history is complicated, but we're not the same people anymore. I'm not asking you to save me or fix anything. I'm asking you to be my partner. Equal stakes, equal responsibility. What about Mom? Won't she expect Mom's too busy with her catering company to interfere? Dad chuckled, though she does insist on providing food for all our client meetings. My phone buzzed. Miguel, have they shown you the proposal yet? You knew about this? I texted back. Who do you think suggested it? You've outgrown being just an employee. Time to build something of your own. Willow watched me nervously. I know it's a lot to consider. Show me the numbers, I interrupted. Her face lit up as she pulled out spreadsheets and projections. We spent hours going through them, debating strategies and building on each other's ideas. This wasn't the old dynamic of me fixing her problems. This was true collaboration. One condition, I said. Finally, name it. We keep the offices separate. I run New York. You run Chicago. We coordinate, but maintain independence. Already planned for that. She pulled out another document. Draft partnership agreement. Completely equal. Completely independent. When did you get so corporate? When I realized I was actually good at it. She smiled. Turns out I just needed to find my own path instead of being pushed onto someone else's. Dad stood up, this cause for celebration. Your mother's been stress baking all morning, waiting for an answer. I haven't said yes yet, please. Willow scoffed. I saw your face when you were going through those projections. You're in. She was right. The numbers were solid. The strategy sound and the opportunity. Perfect. But more than that, the dynamic felt right. A healthy mom was waiting at their house with a spread that could feed an army. Well, we're going to need a New York office warming party, I said. She hugged me, whispering, I'm so proud of who you've become, who you've helped us all become. Moms. Getting sentimental. Willow stage whispered, Quick, someone give her something to bake. We all laughed. Naturally. Easily. Without the underlying tension that had marked our family gatherings for so long. My phone buzzed again. Miguel, dinner tonight to celebrate as your former boss. And, hopefully, something more. I smiled, typing back. Yes to both, looking around at my family. Dad healthy and semi-retired. Mom finding her own passion. Willow standing confidently on her own feet. I realized something profound. Sometimes running away isn't about escape. Sometimes it's about creating enough distance for everyone to grow into who they're meant to be. To Gibson and Gibson. Dad raised his glass, and to the daughters who made it possible. To finding our own paths. Willow added to healthy boundaries. Mom said softly. I raised my glass. Looking at these familiar strangers who had become the family I always hoped we could be to new beginnings. And this time, I truly meant it. Story 2, Hi everyone. Emma is my name. And if you have a moment, I have a tale. That is a bit of a wild ride. One that plunges into a battle for dignity, love, and treachery, prior to plunging into the deep end. Allow me to create the scene and present my small drama's characters to you. Emma, it begins with me. Born into a situation that many would consider privileged. All that jazz and a silver spoon. However, I was brought up to value hard effort above freebies, even with the squishy beginning. In the area of engine additives, my dad is the king, a self-made guy who built an empire out of a niche. Mom is also no slouch. Her name became synonymous with elegance after she started a beauty shop business from the bottom up. Despite the possibility of a messy divorce when I was 19, they managed to keep it elegant, dividing everything in two while still managing to stay friends. Mom got married again, but they didn't have any more children than me. Dad remained single, happy with his business and bachelorhood. Enter the Jake stage, correct? My spouse, or as I now consider him, the impetus behind my emotional turmoil. After I got a job teaching music to kids who had more energy than common sense, I got married right out of college. Up until we had a bump in the road, life seemed pretty sweet. Suddenly, Jake's true color began to show through when I became pregnant. Jake casually threw the grenade into our lives one lazy Sunday while he was sprawled out on the couch with his feet up. Emma, why don't you just quit your job, darling? Keep the infant at home. We'll get by. I almost suffocated on my tea. Jake, quit my work. We can't afford it with just your pay, you know. In addition, I enjoy my job. A sneer played on his lips as he dismissed it with a sweep of his hand. Get them. We're not your typical people. Your father is quite wealthy. With a little assistance from him, we'll be all set. My blood began to boil. Jake, that's not the point. I'm not using my parents' fortune to support our daily needs. Jake wouldn't let it go even after we decided to live within our means. Nor in front of his parents, nor over dinner. He mentioned it once more. Emma is thinking about taking a break from her job. You know, what with the impending kid. Carol, his mother, who has a keen sense of advantage and a sharp tongue, stepped in. Oh, that's fantastic. You two don't need to worry about anything when you're with Emma's family. In an attempt to maintain my composure, I slightly tightened my grip on my fork. In reality, we haven't made any decisions and plan to handle things independently. Thank you. Frank, Jake's father, who never misses a beat, added a laugh. Emma, why choose the difficult route? You could be living comfortably with a little assistance from your parents. Why miss that chance? From then, the discussion with Jake's parents took a turn for the worst, revealing detailed accounts of a life spent on my parents' pay. It seemed like a betrayal with every word, extending the knife's twist. They failed to notice me. A ticket to a comfortable life was visible to them. As I lay in bed next Jake that night, I couldn't get rid of the loneliness. Jake, do you truly believe that's how we should be depending on my parents? Hoping for some indication that I had misinterpreted the situation, I muttered. With those eyes that used to melt my heart, he turned over and faced me. It's not about necessity, Emma. It has to do with intelligence. We deserve a break, and your parents can't afford it. Why not accept it? Well deserved. Long after Jake had fallen asleep, the word continued to reverberate in my mind. It was obvious that our ideals and paths diverged. Wondering how I had missed the indications and where we were going from here, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling. Following that initial argument with Jake around money and pride, I had the hope that we would eventually reconcile. But was I mistaken? Let's go on to the in-law stage. They were left with a unique kind of disarray. Jake's parents weren't exactly the epitome of independence. My family's affluence was like a beacon to them, and they had a knack of spotting a free dinner from a great distance. Frank is talking endlessly about this great business possibility that just required a minimal investment to get off the ground. One evening, as we are all gathered in our small living room, "So, sweetheart Emma," Carol begins, her voice brimming with that artificial sweetness that, given your family's wealth, may give you cavities. You could probably assist us with ease. It is really certain. I made an effort to remain calm. I did, really. Carol, as I previously mentioned, Frank, we are handling our finances on our own. This has nothing to do with my parents' finances. However, Frank, yes, he has the tenacity of a door-to-door salesperson. Emma, please, you wouldn't feel it. To your dad, what are a few thousand? In a weekend, he most likely spends that on golf. I was astounded by the boldness. They had the audacity to treat my family's hard-earned money as though it were theirs to keep while they were sitting in our house and eating our meals. Jake attempts to act as a mediator. Perhaps they're right. You mean it's simply a loan? We could assist. Family. Family. The word Jake almost strangled me. We made a decision when. We're supposed to support your parents' aspirations? The room became quite chilly. Carol. Never one to let a dramatic situation pass unexploited. I piped up. I never hear anyhow. We believed that family supported one another. However, if you're going to be frugal, stingy, I was seeing red now. Working for what you have isn't being stingy, Carol. It's known as responsibility. Perhaps you ought to give it a go sometime. Despite Frank's best efforts, the harm had already been done. Look, Emma, don't be angry. Here, we are only conversing. Speaking, correct? I was unable to conceal my sarcasm. It seems like all we ever discuss is how my family can help you with your issues. I stayed awake that night, looking at the ceiling, after they had finally departed and Jake had apologized to his parents for the mistake. It was more than a simple miscommunication. Two individuals who regarded me as a walking, talking ATM rather than a daughter-in-law completely invaded our life. The birth of our daughter Lily changed the course of our lives. I was a little surprised. You believe that having a grandchild would make people more positive? Not so much with Jake's parents, that is. They must have brought the cheapest onesie from the bargain bin when they arrived at the hospital. The clearance tag was still on it. However, you would have thought that World War III was going to break out in that hospital room when my parents arrived with a gorgeous hand-knit blanket and other excellent baby stuff. They're really putting on a show, aren't they? Looking over the presents with a mixture of jealousy and contempt, Carol joked. Tossing money around must be pleasant. That rather than all this nonsense, they might have simply bought you a house. Jake laughed and added his voice. You see, Mum has a point. Your parents certainly don't hide a residence that may have been more useful. All they could speak about was how my parents should have spent their money, which made my heart sink as I held our newborn. It hurt, hearing Jake repeat what his mother said. Did they see our daughter as nothing more than a cash sign? I repressed my mounting rage and attempted to maintain harmony. Well, the price tag isn't the point, is it? The notion is what matters. Frank, however, wasn't going to let it go. Yes, of course. Yes. However, when you consider it, it's a pleasant little real estate investment. It's a gift that never stops giving. It was a stressful trip home from the hospital. Jake attempted to patch things up by claiming that his parents were just archaic and had no intention of doing so. However, the seed was sown. I began to question why Jake had actually married me. Was the primary attraction my family's bank account, or was it love? During one of their unannounced trips a few weeks later, Carol brought it up once more. With Lily squirming in my arms and us all squeezed into our living room, Carol couldn't help but make fun of the new pram my mother had purchased for us. Having your parents give Lily all these pricey toys and technology must be great. However, don't you believe it would have been more beneficial to contribute to a housing fund? The passive-aggressive tone permeated her voice as she spoke. I had learnt to fear. Jake nodded as he sat next to his mother. We've actually been conversing, sweetie. Instead of giving us more baby items, perhaps your folks might give us a down payment. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? I was blown away. In addition to his parents' unrelenting demands, Jake now supported using the birth of our daughter as leverage to get financial advantage. I had the impression that I was living in a warped world where financial prosperity was more important than family and love. For you, Jake, is that what this is about? Stealing money from my parents? My voice betrayed the hurt I was feeling. I believed that we were all on the same page. For better or worse. Not for the wealthy or the poor. Carol only sniffed, but Jake was surprised. It makes sense to consider these factors when your wife's parents are wealthy. After they eventually departed, I lay awake, looking at the ceiling. Lily slept beside me. I was struck by the realization. My family, my marriage, to them it was all a deal, and the money was me. To put it mildly, the past few years have been quite the roller coaster. Lily's turned into a feisty little 3-year-old, full of life and fun. However, life presented us with some unexpected turns that I did not anticipate. Mom did it first. It was an unexpected accident. We're all shocked. I was so distraught that I was hardly able to pull myself together for Lily. But Jake, he wasn't asking me how I was doing at first. No. Yes, it was. How much do you receive from your mothers, then? Okay, it felt like a smack in the face. Even my mother wasn't chilly. In accordance with Mom's wishes, he was vulture-like examining her inheritance. I inherited the chain of barbershops. I had no business management experience, but Jake was ready to give his skills. Babe, let me handle this. You know I've got a talent for business, he said, beaming and full of confidence. I let him take over because I was too distraught to protest. However, I ensured that the ownership document remained in my name. I hoped that he would be able to help us get back on track. Then, Dad died of a heart attack just a year later. Something inside of me was broken by losing both of my parents so quickly. Jake could only discuss what we would inherit from Dad. even though I needed him more than ever. The day following Dad's death, Jake's folks came over. I anticipated maybe a sliver of dignity, a moment of respect for my loss. However, no. They immediately started making assumptions about Dad's riches. Emma must thus be quite wealthy, Frank responded, almost able to control his joy. Coming your way. Red caught my eye. For once, please refrain from discussing money. The words exploded out of me like shrapnel as I yelled. Carol put on her most insulted expression. No, I never do. All we care about is the future of the family. You don't have to be impolite. As usual, Jake attempted to mediate the situation. They just want to know. As you might imagine, it's a huge thing. I echoed, my voice increasing. Jake, all you and your folks can worry about is making money now that my parents are gone. To you, is that all I am? A bank? There was silence in the room. A knife might easily cut through the strain. Jake muttered a pathetic apology after glancing at me and then at his parents. But the harm was done. I couldn't tolerate the sight of them, their selfishness, their total lack of humanity. Get out! I spoke in a steady but icy tone. Carol was left grumbling to herself. Frank frowned. Jake lingered, attempting to rationalize his parents' actions. However, I had finished listening. Jake burst through the doorway earlier than normal, 2 days after my dad passed away. I have some fantastic news, darling. He barely controls his excitement as he beams at me. I've made an agreement to sell the hairdressing chain. Is it not unbelievable? My jaw nearly hit the floor. What? What did you do? Not even asking me. I was furious, experiencing a mixture of disbelief and betrayal. Before we really got started, his parents arrived, eager to celebrate like if we had won the lottery. They brought up this feast from some posh restaurant and a bunch of pamphlets that screamed high roller. Carol was beaming as she waved those pamphlets at me. You know what, honey? We put down a deposit on a beach property and sold the existing unit. All of us are relocating to the seashore. I gazed at her, feeling like I was imprisoned in some awful dream. Wait a moment. What are you? I was not questioned about relocating. With the winds and all the heat, I don't want to live beside the beach. With a child. Have you gone insane? Carol just waved off my concerns like I was talking about the weather. Oh, don't you worry about it. We have a cruise arranged as well. You ought to accompany us. It will be amazing. From where is this money coming? I questioned my skinny patience. Well, sweetheart, money is irrelevant now that your father has died and the salons have been sold. We're ready for life now, consider it. Yachts, private jets. The dream is being lived by us. Carol's eyes were nearly glowing with money signs. I looked at Jake in complete bewilderment. Why are we even discussing the sale of my mother's company once more? And, darling, what's this bullshit about being prepared for life? It makes sense. It will be too much to handle 2 companies. We must concentrate on what will provide more profits. For our future, that is. For the future of our daughter? What I was hearing was unbelievable. The boldness, the greed. It was just too much. Show me the financials for the salon, I insisted. Before we make any hasty decisions, I want to see everything. Jake writhed and avoided seeing. It all comes down to our future and ensuring our comfort. His parents joined the chorus, encouraging me to just let go and enjoy the windfall. But all I saw when I looked at them were vultures circling. Why is there such a hurry to sell the hair salons? I pressed, wanting Tom to answer. Jake gave a shrug, the image of phony rationality. Look, sweetie, after your father has left, it just doesn't make sense to juggle both enterprises. We were able to concentrate on what generates greater revenue. In contrast to the salons, the vehicle oil thing is a treasure trove. At this, his parents became alert and offered their $0.02. Think about it, darling. You could be able to live in luxury if you sell those small stores. You don't need to spend time on them. With a voice full of greed, his mother called. My skin crawled as I saw them nearly drooling over my wealth. Now I want you to go. With a solid voice and a greater resolve, I said, we should be grieving for my father now, not rejoicing in his legacy. Jake attempted to speak, but I interrupted him. And something else. I inherited this. We are discussing mine. You have no say in this, nor do your parents. When they realized I wasn't the pushover, the air became icy. They believed I was. With stronger scowls and hefty stride, they departed, leaving me to think about the alone struggle that was ahead. The daybreak following my father's burial discovered me in a state of sadness. The world around me dimmed to a boring gray. Jake made the decision to bring his own brand of color back into our lives at that point. During a cardboard tasting breakfast, he set out to accomplish his goals. "We must immediately schedule a meeting with your father's company's founders," Jake said, his voice like a dagger cutting through the silence. I halted a slice of bread halfway to my lips and glanced at him. "My father was just buried, Jake. Can't we wait?" It takes me a while to take it all in." With a wave of his hand, he dismissed my worries. "Time is money, sweetheart. We must move quickly." I contacted our family lawyer in frustration and in search of clarification, requesting an overview of my father's business activities and a breakdown of the barbershop chain's current situation, information that I believed would provide me with a foundation. After a month that passed in a haze of financial documents and legalese, Jake and his parents returned to our home. Without even saying hello, they were all brimming with unwanted advice and proposals laced with greed. Jake jumped right in. "I've been thinking, I'd be a great leader for your dad's business." His accusation was so outrageous that I couldn't even speak. He wasn't finished, though. "I'll also require a new vehicle, something reminiscent of a business magnate." Before I could even come up with an answer, the newest BMW ought to solve the problem. Carol jumped in with her own absurd requests. "The seaside home is nearly ready. All we have to do is add $300,000 more, plus some for deer and furnishings. I anticipate that you will create an account for me. I need to keep my lifestyle after all." I understood what I had to do after hearing their incessant requests. It was like a switch flicked inside me. The divorce papers will no longer be held like a shield by Miss S. Niece. I moved ahead, cutting through their conversation. "We must speak, Jake." Placing the papers on the coffee table in front of him, I made the announcement. His face wrinkled into a scowl as he scooped them up. "So what is this?" He tried to seem casual, but his voice was tremulous. "Divorce paperwork." Every word I spoke was intentional. "I understand. Jake, I've got the company audited. It has been driven into the ground by you. Because of your administration, it is on the verge of collapse." His face drained of color. A culpable youngster exposed in deception. I was attempting to improve it. His reasons were as weak as his confidence as he stammered. "Improve it by letting go of our best employees and ignoring the main factors that contributed to the company's success." Fueled by a mixture of betrayal and wrath, I raised my voice. Always the meddler, Carol couldn't help but step in. "Let's not forget that he has the right to half of everything, sweetheart. After all, assets are bound by marriage." I couldn't help but chuckle, but there was no joy in it. "Nice effort, but everything's been in my name since before I made the horrible mistake of marrying your son. I don't give him anything." There was silence in the room. They were taken aback. Their entire plan is falling apart. "And another thing," I said, gazing Jake down, "you will repay all of the money. You've caused the company to suffer. Each and every dime." Jake's response to the divorce's reality was to grovel frantically, begging me to change my mind. "Please, can't we discuss this? There must be an alternative," he pleaded. Desperation crackled in his voice. Not to be surpassed in terms of drama, his parents began their own heartfelt performance. They bemoaned the fact that they had invested all of their money in the now fragile beachfront home. "Without the next installment, everything will be lost for us," his mother wailed, her tears streaming freely. "Please think of what this means for us." My heart hardened by their past behavior. I listened, feeling nothing but icy indifference to their situation. "That's your mess. I'm sorry." I spoke in an unflinching tone. With renewed determination, I led them to the door and shut it, in this phase of my life. I tried not to think about the past in the days that followed. Instead, I sold the flat where Jake and I used to live and concentrated on the future. Just enough money was raised from the sale to buy a charming, inviting home that would give my daughter and I a fresh start. As soon as I walked inside our new house, I felt relieved, at ease, and able to assist us in a way that had been lacking for far too long. The legal system moved slowly but steadily, and when Jake was eventually apprehended, he was told to make up for the damage he had caused to the hairdresser chain. The courts decided that his carelessness had a cost, and in order to pay his debts, He had to sell his portion of our former flat. For once, seeing him held responsible seemed like a bittersweet justification of the suffering he had caused us. One day, my ex-mother-in-law was on the other end of my phone when it suddenly rang, her voice tinged with desperation. "We're stuck. To acquire a property, we need assistance. Any sum would be beneficial." I was astounded by her audacity as she begged. I inhaled deeply to gather my thoughts before answering. "You made your bed," I said in a firm, determined tone. "You should lie in it now, calling off." A mix of feelings rushed over me, fury at their ongoing attitude of entitlement, but also a profound sense of release from their grasp. Life eventually began to improve after everything that transpired, including the divorce and the struggle to regain control of my mom's hair salon business. It was a challenging struggle, but gradually, the salons began to recover their previous spark. It was a triumph to get back the best stylists we had lost. Seeing them return through those doors, prepared to return to our chairs and work their spell, the scene seemed to spring to life once again. It turned out that I was more suited for the corporate sector than I had thought. Each day was a new lesson, a fresh surprise about what I could do if it hadn't been for being cornered by life's harsh twists. I might never have unearthed this aspect of me. For the time being, managing my dad's cartwheel company was just another challenge. I made the decision to hire a manager to guide the ship while I regained my bearings. I made it plain that I was still in charge and told him, "It's all yours for now, but keep me in the loop. Maybe at the age of 20 once Lily is old enough. If she's interested, I'm considering giving it to her. I want her to have choices so she may follow her own path." Meanwhile, I'm sinking my toes into it, learning the ropes. Lily and I were alone in our new house, which was a peaceful place. An entirely different world from the chaos we had left behind. Yes, it was little, but it belonged to us. A location where we could develop, recover, and create something new. There was laughing everywhere. Every crevice holds a memory we created in the garden together. I felt so much better after hearing Lily giggle. "Mommy, I want to be like you when I grow up." With awe and admiration in her eyes, she would say, "You will become even more remarkable." In response, I would draw her into an embrace. I sensed deep down that we were on the threshold of something fantastic. Together, we were unstoppable, with hopeful hearts and wide arms prepared to face whatever was ahead. Story 3. My brother told me that I was only the driver when I took my family to the hotel. And everyone laughed as they revealed they had only booked a room for 4 people. Parents, brother, and his wife. I calmly replied, "No problem." After making one phone call, I departed. They were in a 35-story stall in the hotel lobby of a contemporary glass office building in Manhattan, New York. Ashley Holmes was standing in front of a big window on the upper floor. It was December 23rd at 3 p.m. She patiently watched as the falling snow converted the typically bustling financial district into a serene, silvery realm. Her desk was buried underneath investment analysis reports for the 4th quarter of the year, and her walls adorned with numerous awards as a financial analyst. At 35, Ashley was recognized as one of the most exceptional senior analysts at the investment bank. "Will it really go well tomorrow?" she muttered to herself with a sigh, her usually confident expression wavering. It had been 15 years since her father's demise. During that time, Ashley had immersed herself in her work to sustain herself. Her $150,000 salary and well-managed savings were evidence of her hard work. On her phone, a fresh notice showed up. It was the latest Instagram post from her brother Brian, showing off a new Rolex with the caption, "Life is great, luxurious living, happy family." Another brand new timepiece? Ashley frowned. As though it would last forever, her brother had been wasting their father's inheritance. Vanessa, his wife, was similar in that she shared images of high-end purses and accessories virtually every day. Her mother Hillary and stepfather Douglas also lived a lavish life in an upscale residence in Florida. Ashley had received a call from her mother the night before, as usual, regarding money. "Ashley, listen." Her mother's voice had a saccharine tone. "Brian wants to buy a new automobile. He needs a down payment." "All fine, I'll transfer it again," Ashley answered, evidently having acceded to such inquiries many times before. She supported her parents' extravagant lifestyle and assisted her brother financially. From her desk drawer, she brought out a snapshot the last Christmas with her father. The picture was taken in the hospital, and though he was frail, he had a warm smile. "Dad, I'm trying hard," she muttered to the photo before diverting her focus to a reservation confirmation next to it. The high-end resort in the Aspen Mountains, Skied Up Lodge. For the Christmas season, she had reserved 34 suites at $800 per night, for a total of roughly $10. Oh. It was a significant decision, even on her income. This trip wasn't just a family vacation for Ashley. It was the last chance to mend her relationship with her family by bearing all costs and creating time to spend with the entire family. She hoped something might change. The office phone rang. It was a confirmation call from Skytop Lodge. They wanted to make final arrangements for her stay starting tomorrow. Ashley straightened up, switching to her usual professional mode. "Indeed, this is Ashley." Regarding tomorrow's matter, while on the phone, Ashley looked out the window again. Anxiety and excitement were mixed together in the middle of Ashley's room on a winter afternoon. A Louis Vuitton suitcase was only half packed on the bed. She folded a dark green cashmere sweater that she would wear the following day, while not a $30,000 sweater. Its high-quality material and simple design matched Ashley's interests and life philosophy. "Is this the right outfit?" she mumbled, clutching the dark green sweatshirt on her breast in front of the mirror. Vanessa always wore the latest designer brands, and her mother had grown to prefer flashy clothes to match Douglas's luxurious tastes. The phone rang. William was the one. "Is everything progressing?" His voice carried its usual kindness tinged with concern. "Yes, basically," Ashley said, sounding a bit fatigued. "I've given the staff at Skytop Lodge special instructions. Contact me immediately if anything happens." William was a renowned hotel chain owner in the U.S., and Skytop Lodge was one of his luxury resorts. They had met at an investors' conference 2 years ago and had been building a steady relationship since. "Thank you, but it'll be okay," Ashley said as she headed towards the window. "I believe this time will be different. Something will change because of this trip." After hanging up the phone, Ashley sat down on the sofa in her living room. On the coffee table was a photograph of her final moments with her father. It was 15 years ago, just before her father passed away in a white hospital room. Her emaciated father had gently held Ashley's hand and said, "You're strong. You're the only one I can trust to take care of the family." With such words in her heart, Ashley had studied diligently, graduated from college with outstanding honors, and made her way up in the world of finance. She worked as hard as her male colleagues and earned the position of senior analyst at an investment bank in her early 30s. After their father passed away, her brother Brian left college and continued to live off the inheritance with his stepfather's approval. After getting married, he and his wife Vanessa maintained a luxurious lifestyle. Ashley's smartphone vibrated with a message from Brian. "You're picking me up tomorrow morning, right? Don't oversleep." His typically arrogant tone came through, even in text. Ashley briefly replied, "Of course." She had mixed feelings about using her own car for transportation. Typically, Brian used expensive cab services and seldom ever drove his own car. It was past 10 o'clock when I looked at the clock. She had to pick up her family early the next morning. Ashley sighed as she began to organize the rest of her luggage. Whether it was anticipation for tomorrow, her heartbeat quickened slightly. Looking at her father's photo one last time, his smile seemed encouraging. "Tomorrow will surely go well," she murmured to herself as she headed to the bedroom. It felt it would take a while to go into a quiet slumber, with a mix of eagerness and concern about the next day. On Christmas Eve morning, Manhattan was enveloped in a silvery world of snow. The clock showed 6 a.m. Ashley woke up before her alarm clock sounded. She took a deep breath and got out of bed, telling herself that today was the day. She woke up 30 minutes earlier than planned, which was actually better. She wanted to be properly prepared before picking up her family in front of a huge mirror in the bathroom. Ashley carefully applied her makeup around her neck. She wore a single diamond necklace that was a keepsake from her father. Ashley's modest yet sophisticated clothing was a subtle representation of her ideal self, the self-assurance she had built up over the course of her 35 years of existence, and her fear about the future. The underground parking garage of her luxury apartment building was quieter than usual. Most residents were probably still asleep on Christmas Eve morning. Ashley turned on her black Mercedes-Benz 550, which gleamed in the garage lights. The navigation system displayed the route. The first destination was the upscale apartment on the Upper East Side, where her mother and stepfather lived. From there, she would head to Brian and Vanessa's new home in Brooklyn. The roads were clear, but careful driving was necessary due to the snow. When she arrived at the Upper East Side, her mother, Hillary, was already waiting at the entrance of the apartment. Dressed in a showy scarlet coat and clutching a huge Gucci purse, her stepfather, Douglas, got into the back seat without a word. "Good morning, Ashley." Her mother's voice had a forced tone, as if welcoming a high-quality taxi driver. They then proceeded to the Brooklyn home of Brian and Vanessa. The couple had recently moved to an expensive area, despite rumors that their inheritance was running low. Continuing to keep up appearances. "Ashley, you're late?" Brian's voice carried his usual arrogance. Vanessa was dressed in a new Gucci coat holding a matching bag. Both appeared as if they had walked out of a fashion magazine with everyone on board. Ashley cautiously grabbed the wheel. Sitting in the passenger seat, Brian was continuously tinkering with his phone, most likely posting something boastful. The atmosphere inside the car was heavy. Apart from occasional whispers between Hillary and Vanessa, there was hardly any conversation. After about 2 hours of driving, the snow-covered peaks of the Pocono Mountains came into view, stunningly magnificent, and alleviated some of Ashley's strain. "You can see it now," Brian suddenly shouted. The luxurious structure of Skytop Lodge appeared amidst the snowy landscape. The grand building, styled in Italian Renaissance, displayed a stunning harmony with the surrounding nature. A giant Christmas tree decorated the front entrance, and illuminations sparkled everywhere. Luxury cars arrived one after another, and wealthy families alighted. When Ashley parked the car in front of the entrance, a uniformed bellboy approached. From that moment, everything began to change. "You've worked hard to get us here." Brian's voice, icy cold, resonated inside the car. Ashley twisted around to look at the back seat. There she saw her brother with a malicious smirk she had never seen before. Her mother, Hillary, and stepfather Douglas averted their gazes as Vanessa gave a faint grin. Ashley instinctively felt that something bad was about to happen. "The driver's job finishes here. This hotel is exclusively for us, the real family," Brian said. Ashley was momentarily stunned. It felt as though the temperature inside the car had plummeted. "What are you saying?" Ashley's voice trembled slightly. "I made the reservations." "Oh, the reservations?" Brian scoffed. "They've already been changed just to our names." Her mother, Hillary, looked troubled, but said nothing. Her stepfather, Douglas, continued to look out the window. Vanessa did not bother to hide her malicious grin. Everyone except Ashley got out of the car. Brian told the bellhop to grab the bags. Ashley slowly took out her smartphone. Williams's number was pressed while she made a conscious effort to keep her hands from shaking. After a few rings, his calm voice came through. "Hello, Ashley." William, cancel the reservations. Ashley's voice retained an unexpected calm. "All of them, please." After a moment of silence on the other end, William seemed to understand the situation. "I get it. I'll arrange it right away." At that time, a staff worker in uniform approached from the front desk against the backdrop of pristine snow. The black uniform stood out sharply from inside the car. Ashley observed everything from the window. "I'm sorry we cannot find your reservation." The staff member informed them. The smile vanished from Brian's face. Hillary began fumbling through her purse in a panic. Douglas turned to face the front for the first time. "There must be an error." Hillary's anxious muttering was audible. Ashley slowly rolled down the car window. "It's no mistake." Ashley's voice was calm. "All reservations have been canceled. Goodbye, Ashley." "Hold on." Brian's voice carried a note of desperation. "It's just a joke. You know that, right?" But Ashley had already started the engine and grasped the steering wheel in the rearview mirror. She observed her family standing bewildered. Vanessa's expensive boots sank into the snow. "Ashley." Hillary's voice faded with the wind. Slowly, the car pulled out of the hotel parking lot and started to backtrack. The snow continued to fall. A solitary tear ran down Ashley's face. It was more a tear of liberation than of sorrow. Her smartphone began to ring. It was Brian calling. She ignored it. Then followed a call from Hillary. Ignored as well. Messages started arriving one after another. Why would you do this? It's Christmas Eve. You've embarrassed us. Will you refund the accommodation costs? Ashley let out a small laugh at the last message. In the end, their focus was always in money, not in love or familial relationships. Pretends and computations only. Ashley made the decision to go to William's penthouse rather than her own apartment as she drove down the mountain toward the city. She felt a refreshing feeling of clarity, reflected from her expression in the rearview mirror. The streetlights gently lighted the falling snow, lending a serene tint to the joyous evening. The calm inside the car, free of any occupants in the rear, was unexpectedly soothing. Ashley's vehicle slid into William's penthouse's underground parking garage 2 hours later. As she entered the elevator, a warm feeling began to spread throughout her chest. It was clear to her that she was headed to the right place. When she opened the door to the penthouse, the warmth of the room and William's presence welcomed her. The fireplace was already blazing, softly lighting up the living room. "Ashley, are you okay?" William inquired, his voice filled with great caring. "Indeed," Ashley returned the smile. "Actually, I feel relieved." Ashley told him everything, and William listened patiently as he made 2 glasses of wine. Brian's sly grin, her mom, Hillary's averted eyes, and what she had done herself. "You made the proper decision, Ashley." From the couch facing the hearth, William gave her reassurance. "But I wrecked their Christmas because of me," Ashley muttered, gazing at the wineglass in her hand. "That is untrue." William's voice was soft yet forceful. "Their own Christmas was wrecked. You just safeguarded your own value." Ashley's eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of sorrow. Rather, these were tears of relief from the years-long load she had been carrying. Her smartphone vibrated again. It was a message from Douglas, her stepfather. This time, "The whole family has been shamed by your selfishness. Don't ever show your face again." Ashley turned off her smartphone completely. She had never experienced the warmth of her family before, but William put his hand on her shoulder. "From tomorrow, a new life begins," Ashley stated, peering into the flames of the fireplace. "I will no longer allow anyone to meddle in my affairs." William gave a quiet nod. For Ashley, this was the most significant Christmas Eve ever. Her family was still with her. She had found herself again. The souvenir jewelry from her father softly gleamed in the light of the flame. Manhattan was engulfed in a gleaming white wonderland on Christmas morning. Snow continued to fall softly between the high buildings, quietly masking the events of the previous day, creating a postcard-like vista from William's penthouse windows. "Good morning, honey." William was already brewing coffee when he met her. The scent of espresso permeated the room. "This morning, I received a call from Skytop Lodge." William began in silence. "It was quite a scene with your family." Standing near the window with a mug held in her hands, Ashley answered coolly. "That's what I anticipated. Brian must have made a scene." As soon as she turned on her smartphone, notifications flooded the screen. Over 40 missed calls. Almost 100 messages. With a few from Douglas, the most came from her mother, Hillary, and brother Brian. "Do you think this is okay, Ashley? I'll never forget how you made us seem foolish in a 5-star hotel lobby. You have no right to abuse us like this. How about this evening?" Her mother sent the final message. "We need to talk about money. Call me ASAP." Ashley let out a long sigh and put the phone away. William gave her a comforting embrace from behind. "I've already decided. I'm prepared to face whatever comes next," Ashley said, liberated and empowered. Ashley's determination was evident as she turned to face William. "I'm severing all connections with them," she said resolutely. William gave a quiet nod. His face conveyed his complete support for her choice. "Are you certain about this?" Gently, he inquired. "After all, they are your family." "No, they aren't," Ashley answered with conviction. "A true family supports and understands one another. They were only strangers with a financial obsession." The two proceeded to the breakfast table, where William had prepared croissants and scrambled eggs. A modest but meaningful meal. Ashley had been looking for happiness, and this was it. Ashley Williams looked genuinely at Ashley and added, I have a proposal for you. How about we share a home? Ashley was stunned for a second, the snow slowly falling outside the window. Let's start a new life here together, William proposed, his words bringing tears to Ashley's eyes, tears of gladness at being released from the false shackles of family and discovering a new real one. Yes, Ashley grinned. William, that sounds fantastic. At that moment, her phone started ringing once again. Mom appeared on the screen, but Ashley didn't hesitate any longer. She took up the phone and totally blocked her mother's number, followed by Brian and Douglas. I've taken a new step, Ashley stated with a clear and cheerful face. William answered with a loving smile. A severe cold wave struck Manhattan in mid-January, shortly after the new year, from the window of Ashley's office. In the cold north wind, the cityscape appeared to tremble. Mizuho, there's a visitor for you in the lobby. The voice on the intercom was that of her secretary. Miss S. Hillary Brown is here. Above the keyboard, Ashley's hands hesitated. Brown Hillary. Since that Christmas Eve, she had not heard her mother's name before. I get it. I'll be right there, Ashley answered, her voice quivering a little. In the first-floor foyer of high-rise buildings, Ashley's high heels reverberated on the marble floor as she braced herself for the reunion with her mother. Her mother was seated on the guest sofa, not in her normal flamboyant clothes, but in a modest greatcoat. She was obviously tired, as evidenced by the muted makeup. Could I enter? The old haughtiness was gone from her mother's voice. After giving her mother a slight nod, Ashley escorted her to the elevator. When they got to the office, Ashley motioned for her mom to take a seat on the reception area sofa. Outside, light snow began to dance in the air. I needed to chat, so I came here. Sitting across from Ashley and sharing a cup of coffee, her mother began in a low voice. We're at our breaking point. Ashley had anticipated it well. After years of lavish living, her father's estate was all but gone. Her stepfather's real estate ventures had failed and they were now overwhelmed with debt. Brian was struggling to pay for his new car and was behind on rent. We require assistance. Her mother's voice trembled. Is money at stake, Mom? Ashley asked in a relaxed tone. Yes, her mom said reluctantly. For Brian's vehicle loan, Mom, and living costs each month. That's sufficient. Ashley cut her off. I'm not the family bank anymore, Mom. I have made the decision to live my own life. Ashley's eyes showed a firm resolve, while her mother's look was cloudy. We are family, though. In any case, what is true family? Ashley inquired softly. During Christmas, you all treated me like a chauffeur. You said nothing when Brian gave me that bitter smirk. Is that family? There was a thick silence in the room. Hillary, her mother, spoke tearfully. Listen, Ashley, I'm in serious danger right now, but I really apologize for what transpired that day. I need your assistance. Ashley slowly stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the view. In the background was the building her father used to run. Mom, go home, Ashley replied without turning around. Additionally, don't return. My life is mine. Ashley. Mom, goodbye. Her mother stood up silently, though it appeared like she wanted to say more. The room reverberated with the sound of the door closing. Ashley sighed heavily as she returned to her desk and stroked her father's remembrance jewelry. Her chest felt a little lighter, which was odd because it was heavy. The coming of spring has altered the Manhattan view from the window of William's apartment. The park was alive with blooms in full bloom. Ashley stared at the view while holding her morning coffee. What are you thinking about, Ashley? William inquired gently from behind her. Just a bunch of things. Ashley turned to smile in response. My life has changed a lot in the last 3 months. The changes were substantial, in fact. She had been promoted to head of her department at the investment bank and had told William she was engaged. Her abilities were completely appreciated as the team leader for a new project. There had been no contact from her mother, and Brian's flamboyant social media posts had gone. A coworker later informed her that they had downsized from a lavish apartment to a more affordable one, now enjoying a simpler life. Do you have any regrets? Standing next to her, gazing at the cherry blossoms, William posed the question. Not a single one. I've decided to go this route. Ashley touched her father's memento necklace in response. Blood ties aren't the exclusive definition of true family, Ashley pondered. It's about supporting and understanding one another. At dusk in a fancy restaurant where she had met William, he had important news. William said with joy, "We're going to grow with a new hotel chain on the West Coast. Additionally, I would like you to serve as an investment advisor." Ashley instantly gave a nod. Work and private life. Everything was settling into its ideal equilibrium. She sensed something. A fresh start for our lives. Ashley raised her glass. Indeed, our existence. William clinked his glass with hers and grinned. The sound of the bell was like the start of a fresh chapter. Story 4. I never imagined that at 62, I would be living alone in this house. Every evening, I ascended the stairs and ran my fingertips down the sleek oak railing. I can't help but consider how many generations of my family have followed suit. I've spent the majority of my life in this Maple Street home, which has been in my family for more than a century. I'm Caroline Mitchell, and my husband Robert left me for his 25-year-old secretary 20 years ago. At the time, our son Tommy was just 12 years old. As if it were yesterday, I can still clearly recall the day Robert informed me he was leaving. He was standing in our kitchen, fiddling with his wedding band while avoiding eye contact. "I'm sorry, Caroline. The first never planned for this to happen," he stated, his voice barely above a whisper. I just stood there, holding the kitchen counter until my knuckles grew white. "Does she make you happy, Robert?" Trying to speak steadily, I asked. He nodded without turning to face me. "I'll make sure Tommy is taken care of. My alimony will be reasonable," and he fulfilled that pledge. "Without fail, I'll give him that each month." The money came in. I saved every bit of it for Tommy's education fund, working extra hours at the marketing agency to support our everyday costs. Fortunately, the house was already paid for as my grandmother's last present to me. Throughout everything, this place has been my fulcrum. On one occasion, filmmakers utilized it for a historical piece on the Civil War era, claiming it caught the spirit of the time flawlessly. The producer wanted to buy it for an absurd amount of money, but I couldn't sell it. There is more to this house than just windows and walls. I'm descended from it. My tale. I put myself into my career in parenting Tommy when Robert departed. Dating. It never seemed right. Every time my coworkers tried to introduce me, I turned them down. I joked that I'm married to my job, but in reality, I had given up on love. My entire existence revolved on Tommy. I made sure he got all the love, support, and direction he required. We followed our routines. Sunday movie evenings, schoolwork at the kitchen table, and breakfast together every morning. His father's alimony income allowed him to attend a reputable institution and graduate with honors. Last year, I made an effort to be friendly when Tommy brought Amy home from work. Her constant smiles, compliments on the house, and inquiries about family photos gave the impression that she was pleasant enough. However, something didn't feel right. Maybe it was the way her grin never quite reached her eyes, or how she'd shift the subject whenever work came up. Still, I told myself I was simply being an overprotective mother. "We're getting married, Mom." One evening over supper, Tommy made an announcement. I recall suppressing the nagging sensation in my stomach by feigning a grin and giving them both a hug. "I'm really delighted for you both," I said. I meant it too. I want it to signify something anyhow. It was a modest yet beautiful wedding. I watched from the front row as my kid made a vow to this woman I hardly knew. Robert was also present, along with his teenage twins, second wife, and new family. We exchanged courteous nods but remained silent. At first, everything appeared to be okay. They both work at the same tech startup and have an apartment across town. Sometimes I would invite them over for supper and observe how Amy's analytical eyes would check everything in the home. However, I had no idea how rapidly things would shift, or that my quiet life was going to be completely upended. Tommy called me while I was at my job. I could tell he had been sobbing since his voice was trembling. "Half the company is being laid off, Mom." Both Amy and I were being let go. My heart fell. I was aware of how difficult losing a job was. In my years in marketing, I'd witnessed enough colleagues go through it. "Breathe deeply, honey. Tell me what you require. We won't be able to make next month's rent," he added, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our funds. They are essentially extinct." I made a few fast calculations and sent enough cash to pay their apartment's rent for 3 months. I did have some savings, but it wasn't much. And my son was this. You both should have time to look for other employment as a result, I informed him. In the weeks that followed, there was a mixture of disappointment and hope. Tommy was able to secure a new job at a smaller organization, although the pay was much less than his previous wage. However, I made an effort to avoid passing judgment, but Amy's job hunt appeared to be at best mediocre. She would frequently be going through social media rather than job postings when I visited them. Then Tommy gave me another call, just as the 3 months were drawing to a close. I hate to say it, but is there any possibility that we may spend some time with you, Mom? Only till things improve? I gazed around my vast empty house, thinking about all the vacant rooms. Naturally, there is always room for you here, honey. They came on a Sunday afternoon, their car full with stuff as I helped them take boxes up to Tommy's former room. Amy's eyes were scanning the home with an intensity that unnerved me, and I couldn't help but notice them. Caroline, she said in a soft, syrupy voice, your room is really stunning. And the setup of such home office. While we're looking for a job, it would be ideal for our workspace. Tommy and I might be able to use the room. It's larger. Moreover, we are 2 people. I apologized firmly but courteously, Amy. However, that is my private area. Work requires me to be at my office, and I occasionally have to answer calls late at night. Tommy's old room is quite spacious, and you'll have plenty of storage in the guest room across the hall. Her expression dropped, and even though she remained silent, the cold stare in her eyes chilled me. She looked away and pulled her lips together, pulling her bag up the steps harder than it had to be. Tommy smiled pityingly at me. Thank you, Mother. We sincerely appreciate it. Life settled into a new pattern. Or at least that's what I tried to tell myself. I would brew coffee, wake up at 6 every morning, and go to work. Tommy would depart for his new work at around the same time. And Amy would still be asleep. Well, Amy, during those initial days, I made an effort to keep my thoughts to myself. She's probably still applying for jobs online. I told myself. However, as the days passed, an unavoidable pattern became apparent. She would always be lying on my living room sofa, phone in hand, surrounded by empty snack bags and coffee mugs, just like she had been that morning when I got home from work. The crumbs from her lunch would be all over my kitchen counter, and the dishes would be heaped in the sink. How did today's job search go? I would inquire. I'm trying to sound light. Oh, you are aware. Nothing particularly fit for my qualifications. She'd reply without glancing up from her phone. This is how 2 weeks went by. I'd always kept the house spotless, but now it was beginning to show signs of neglect. Laundry spilled out of the hampers, dishes were piled high, and dust collected on the furniture. I thought it was time for a nice chat after a particularly demanding workday. We were eating at dinner, a meal I made after cleaning the kitchen. First, I anxiously cleared my throat. Honey, Amy? I started speaking as softly as I could. Since you spend the day at home, I was thinking that you might be able to assist with some housework until you find employment. Of course, the shift in her countenance was rapid. Tears filled her eyes as her fork clattered on the plate. I was aware. She wept, turning to Tommy. I knew she'd attempted to transform me into her maid. Just because I'm temporarily unemployed doesn't mean I should be your mother servant. I sat there shocked. Amy, that's not what You've been looking down on me since day one. She was full on weeping. Now, do you believe that I am unworthy of your priceless son or your priceless home? Please, Amy. I didn't mean, but she was already pulling back her chair, rushing from the table with theatrical flair. Tommy sprang up, his face black with wrath. It's unbelievable that you would treat Amy so cruelly, Mom. She is now going through a really difficult period. The situation worsened after that evening. While they ordered takeout and left their empty containers wherever they finished eating, I continued to do all of the cooking and cleaning, due to habit, or perhaps hope that when I cooked, I would still call them to come to supper. They would descend, eat silently, and then leave their soiled dishes on the table. Every day felt longer than the last as the weeks passed slowly. The soft tap of Amy's fingers on her phone screen and the sound of the TV in the living room had become the background noise of my home life. Even though I spent more time at the office than I needed to and made an effort to avoid her, the issue was still very much on my mind. Our HR director brought up the need for an office manager at our weekly department meeting one morning. My ears instantly pricked up. What is the beginning pay? As casually as possible, I asked. To begin, 45,000, she said. However, there is space for improvement. We always try to promote from within. I considered Amy's resume. She had previously worked in administration and held a business degree. This might be ideal. During my lunch break, I carefully drafted and then deleted a text message to Amy regarding the position. It was better to deliver this type of news face to face. I left work early that day, my heart light with hope. Maybe this could be the solution to our problems. Amy was on the couch as usual, browsing through her phone when I found her. On the coffee table, a mostly consumed bag of chips was lying with crumbs all over it. Amy, I continued, attempting to seem upbeat and supportive, I have some positive news. My company has a position open for an office manager. Although it's entry level, there is a lot of room for growth. I could drive you to work, and the starting pay is good. Together we could commute. The chip bag flew as she sprung off the couch. Are you serious now? A manager of an office. Do you know what my qualifications are? I was simply wondering what you were thinking. That I'd be pleased to arrange paper clips and get coffee. With every phrase, her voice was getting louder. My degree is in business. I coordinated projects. Please, Amy. It wasn't my intention. Oh, I knew precisely what you meant. She was virtually shouting. Now, you think I'm a freeloader? Do you consider me to be lazy? You can't bear the fact that I'm not working. Are you attempting to put me in a situation that is demeaning? Just then, Tommy stepped through the front door, his timing absurdly terrible. What's happening? He questioned, gazing between us. With tears running down her cheeks, Amy hurried over to him. Your mother just insulted me again. She believes that I am a freeloader. She is attempting to coerce me into accepting a low-paying position as an office manager. I got to my feet, trembling. That's not true, Tommy. I was just trying to help. There's an opportunity in my company, and I thought, Mom, stop. Tommy's voice was like a knife piercing the room. Why do you constantly have to do this? Why are you unable to simply leave me alone? What are you going to do? Sincerely perplexed, I inquired. All I'm trying to do is assist. Assistance? Amy laughed, despite her tears. Are you attempting to make me look bad? Her theatrical sobbing reverberated throughout the home as she hurried up the stairs. Tommy's expression was one of utter despair. I never imagined that living with you would be so challenging. He shook his head and muttered, Mom, you start drama all the time. You can't seem to help yourself. I stood by myself in the living room as he went upstairs with his wife. I reclined in my seat. My hands are becoming chilly from holding my partially consumed coffee, bringing on the drama. The words tasted terrible in my tongue as I murmured to myself, no one has ever called me theatrical in my 62 years of life. I learned to keep quiet about the work situation as the days stretched into weeks. Amy's eyes would dangerously widen at the mention of work, so I completely stopped bringing it up. Even though I would have to watch her squander away her days on my couch, it was simpler that way. When Tommy received his first significant commission at work, everything changed. Amy started going out more frequently all of a sudden, coming home with shopping bags from pricey stores and brand new manicures that most likely cost more than our monthly grocery bill. She didn't even consider getting paper towels or washing detergent. Those ordinary domestic things were still my job. I kept thinking that they would start searching for a place of their own once Tommy's salary increased. They appeared quite happy to stay put and get more and more comfortable in my home. But every morning I looked through the local rental ads on my phone, hoping they would find a wonderful apartment across town. Amy was excitedly chatting on her phone in my living room one evening when I got home. God forbid! The home is ideal for hosting a party. You ought to check out the antique chandelier in the dining room, she said. It will look fantastic in pictures. My stomach was already nodding as I put my briefcase down. Which gathering? After hanging up, she turned to face Tommy, who had just entered. We ought to throw our anniversary celebration here, darling. Is it not unbelievable that over 2 years have passed? What specific location do you want to host this party? Even though I already knew the answer, I still asked. Naturally. Amy gestured around my living room. This home is stunning, Caroline. It will be a hit with all of our friends. I'm considering moving some furniture in the living room to make a dance floor and setting up the bar in the entryway. Shouldn't you have asked me first? Amy was already browsing through her phone when I interrupted, attempting to speak in a level voice. We should invite the Hendersons and maybe that new couple from your office, Tommy. Oh, and we really must give that caterer we hired for New Year's a call. I went to Tommy, thinking he'd say something, but he was nodding along with his wife's ideas, a grin on his face. I cornered Tommy in the kitchen later that night. Mom, I know what you're going to say, he started, but for Amy, it would mean a lot. She's been depressed recently, and this would make her feel much better. Tommy, this is my home. You must consult me before deciding to have a party here. Mom, please. He looked at me. The exact one he used to give me when he wanted additional dessert as a youngster. I swear that I'll handle everything. After that, I'll even have a cleaning service come in. There won't be any work on your part. I gazed at my son as I stood there. This man, who was once the youngster I reared, made me feel like my willpower was eroding. All right. Knowing I would regret my choice, I sighed, but I want everything back in its correct position afterward. Thank you, Mother. You are the greatest. He gave me a short embrace before running upstairs to inform Amy of the good news. I wasn't a part of the flurry of activities that took place in the week before the celebration. Amy took over my house like a commander organizing a military operation. Delivery trucks came and went, delivering everything from elegant tablecloths to crystal champagne glasses. She changed my furniture without asking, shoving my beloved reading chair into a corner to make place for a makeshift dancing floor. I kept my distance, returning to my office whenever feasible. Still, I couldn't help but overhear her constant phone chats about appetizer options and wine choices. My family portraits were removed to make way for paper lanterns and string lights, and my grandmother's antique face was relocated to create ornate floral arrangements. I got out of work early on Friday. I had even bought a new clothing for the occasion. I felt it would be suitable to wear a basic cocktail dress in navy blue, nothing too elaborate. As I pulled into my driveway, the roadway was already lined with automobiles, as I could see. I inhaled deeply before approaching my own front door. The house was hardly recognizable inside. People were already dancing in the open area, created by the furniture being pushed up against the walls. The fragrance of costly perfume, food, and catering filled the air. Amy saw me from the other side of the room. She was wearing a short silver dress that caught the light from the recently erected party lights. Her cosmetics and hair were done by professionals. She excused herself from the group she was chatting to and strolled over to me, her face set in an unnatural grin. Caroline! Her voice was loud enough for guests around to hear, yet sickly pleasant. I assumed you would have left by now. I blinked, perplexed. Lost. Why would I disappear? Oh. Her head was cocked, her grin never faltering. I suppose I overlooked the fact that this gathering is genuinely only for our buddies. Young folks, you know. I thought you would plan something else for tonight. Get a hotel room, perhaps. While several of her companions nearby smiled into their champagne glasses, I stood there in a state of shock. I live here. My voice was little more than a whisper when I spoke. Indeed. Additionally, you've been really kind to allow us utilize it, Amy murmured, rubbing my arm condescendingly. But you have to realize, having someone's mom to an anniversary celebration is sort of a buzzkill. I looked behind her to Tommy, who was standing close watching this discussion. He wouldn't permit this, surely. He would undoubtedly intervene and protect me. Mom, he said as he approached. Amy is correct. Actually, this is more of a party for young folks. Perhaps it would be best if you weren't present at that time. Something inside of me eventually broke without a word after becoming thinner and thinner over the previous few months. I turned and followed him up the stairs. Amy's arrogant voice was audible to me. You see? She would be sensible about this, I knew. She most likely went to pack a bag for the night. I went into Tommy's former room, which is now their room, and took their bags out from beneath the bed. I started emptying drawers with steady hands, not folding anything, just tossing their clothes into the bags. Expensive suits and designer gowns, anything they purchased. They packed their bags with Tommy's new paycheck. As I lugged the bulky luggage down the stairs, one in each hand, I stripped the bed, wrapped their amenities in a towel, and added those to the music that beat below. Everyone's attention was drawn to the sound of them bumping against each step. As I walked into the living room, the crowd dispersed, people stepping away from their chats to observe the action. Mom? Tommy's voice broke. What are you doing? In the center of the improvised dance floor, I dropped the luggage. You're heading out now? The celebration is done. Amy's face twisted with anger. Do you believe you're accomplishing something? She let out a scream. This is impossible. This is my home. My voice was deadly calm as I spoke. Before I contact the police and have you removed for trespassing, you have just 5 minutes to depart. Mom, hurry up! Tommy chuckled uneasily. You're kidding, right? I took my phone out. 4 minutes. Muttering to one another, the visitors started to shuffle for the door. Ubers were already being called by some. What a crazy old idiot you are! Amy stepped toward me. She gestured toward my face. Even I was shocked at how rapidly I moved. We drew closer till we were in close proximity. Call me one more name, I said, my voice low and dangerous. And I'll demonstrate to you just how much strength this old idiot still has. Give me a try. The color fled from Amy's face. She grabbed the closest suitcase and staggered back. After a minute of inaction, Tommy reached for the second bag. Mom, he began. Get out. They made their way to the door. Amy, who continued to swear beneath her breath. Tommy gave me one more glance, but I had already turned away and started to remove the cheesy decorations they had put up on my walls. Once they were gone, I looked around the deserted party scene, which included tables full of unfinished food and half-empty champagne glasses all over the place. Fortunately, my grandmother's face is still intact. I started packing the catering trays. The homeless shelter in the area remained open. All this food could at least do some good. Quietly, perhaps too quietly, the weeks after the celebration went by. However, the quiet in my home felt like a gift after months of turmoil. I placed everything back where it belonged. I put my reading chair back near the window. I put pictures of my family back on the walls. The centerpiece on the dining room table is my grandmother's face. News spreads quickly in tiny places. Sarah, my friend who works in real estate, informed me Tommy and Amy had taken a 2-bedroom apartment in the new complex across town. Funny thing, she said one morning over coffee. I've known Janet from the leasing office for a long time. Claims that while they nearly failed the credit check, Tommy's new pay just managed to get them accepted. I remained silent and sipped my coffee. Stories began to trickle in. During periodic inspections, the property manager had previously issued 2 warnings on the condition of their unit, according to Martha, whose niece resides in the same building. The apartment is a disaster, Martha acknowledged, shaking her head. Dishes in the sink were piled high with garbage for days. Does that sound familiar? Reminiscent of my own kitchen during their visit, I just nodded. Then came news of the argument. They weren't particularly tactful. Through the walls, the neighbors could hear them. Amy is yelling for his pitiful pay. How she was sick of living in a dump. How none of her friends had to live like this. Tommy retaliated at her for not wanting to work, to prepare food and clean, to take any action at all. Actually, they claim that she occasionally tosses items. During our monthly lunch, my buddy Linda muttered something. Tommy was observed sleeping in his vehicle one night last week. Every tale gave me a little heartache. Not for Amy, but for Tommy. I was done wasting my sympathies on her. He was still my son. In spite of everything, I occasionally pick up the phone while lingering over his number, but I put it down again every time. He needs to learn this lesson, his course to follow. Now the house feels different. Waiting, definitely, but peaceful, as if it is aware that the narrative is not over. As I mentioned, I occasionally spend some evenings looking at the pictures on the wall while sipping tea in my reading chair. Tommy and I at the beach when he was 10 years old, his graduation, and his first baseball game. I recall the young child who would come to me with broken toys and injured knees, believing that his mother could mend everything. But I can't help him with this. He needs to see it for himself, comprehend who he has become, and figure out how to return to the guy I brought up. I'll stay here at our family home until then, keeping his room prepared in case something comes up. Not for Amy. When my son is ready to apologize, discuss, and rebuild, that bridge is completely destroyed. Meanwhile, I'm taking back my life. I took weekend painting lessons, joined a reading group, and even acquired a kitten from the neighborhood shelter. Oliver is his name, and he's a great companion. In the evenings, he sits with me as I read. purring happily. Neither of us felt the urge to say anything meaningless to break the quiet. Life carries on as usual. Tommy will also know where to look for